All right, I have 7 o'clock. Welcome to the April Yankton County Civics meeting. We're going to have new members tonight, so we'll do that in a little minute, and an election of officers. But we will call the meeting to order, and that's what I'm doing right now. Thank everyone for coming. We're going to have a public comment at the end, which right now is scheduled at 9 o'clock, somewhere roughly in there. So on the little clipboard right by the door, to the right of the door, is a sign up for public comment. So that would be something that you have a general question. It's not a vendetta against anybody. It's not on the agenda tonight, but it's maybe a question that you want to get addressed or answered, and we'll look at that. And it's 3 minutes per person when we do that. So sometime tonight, if you want to do a speak up on a public comment, please sign up on the sheet there. And Brian, if we could have a roll call.
Okay, attendance: Harper.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Frang.
Here.
Klimish.
Here.
Keening.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Welch.
Yes.
All in attendance.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from, find this sheet.
Special meeting, I think.
There was a special meeting, but I don't remember the date. It was like the 28th or something. 26th, approve the minutes of 26 March was a special meeting. And is there on the Planning Commission any comments or questions or a motion to approve as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. We need a second if we're going to approve the minutes, or any discussion on it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
He wasn't here.
I'll second the motion. I could second the motion, can I?
Nope.
Can you second the motion to discuss it?
For the minutes? If you weren't at the meeting, you can't second the meeting of the minutes.
Right.
I'm just seconding so we can move forward to a vote.
Eric wasn't here either.
I wasn't here.
Yeah, you weren't here either. Joe, Dan was.
Do you have enough votes to approve it? Do you have a quorum to approve the people that were here?
No, we don't. So we can suspend the minutes until the next time. What I would like to do, we're in a situation we didn't think we were going to be. So the people that weren't here at that time, if I think we can get them a copy of the minutes, if they had any questions in regards to that, and then at the next time that we meet, we could go back and catch up the minutes from the 26th of March, that they get formally addressed in the record. Is there any questions or comments on that?
That's the minutes we got in our packet, right?
The whole idea is that you're voting for that the minutes are correct as they were presented at the meeting. Well, there's no way for me to know what you give me is correct.
Understand.
I mean, because I wasn't here at the meeting.
I don't know that we.
There wasn't really.
And I'm not trying to cause a problem, but that's.
They were administrative issues, or basically corrections on issues that have been in the past. That really was a clean up some administrative issues on a couple lots. I think there was 3 of them.
I guess from my experience before, I mean, we have had this before, and what happened before was take a motion in a second, and those who are here will vote.
Right.
And then it may or it will not technically have a quorum, but it will be on the record as being voted on. Is there?
Right now, I think Zane and I were the only 2 there that night.
Yeah,
I was there. Oh, you were, that's right. Dan was there too.
And that's all that's ever going to be.
Right. That's
The
right.
problem before is it was always corrected because there was somebody
Right,
missing. Tonight, there's nobody missing that's going to be coming the next time to give that
right,
quorum.
it's new people, so. Yeah.
Are the new members even members of the board yet?
No. Because it says, well, I don't even know necessarily the answer on that, because obviously they're appointed to serve on the Planning Commission, and then there's an election of officers. So.
Yes, we're members of
So
the board.
we were
appointed
by the
when,
county commission.
So we were technically members of the board from then on, but we cannot vote on those minutes.
Well, you can't.
But I think you have to take what action you can.
Right.
Because I think the way you get in trouble is by not taking an action.
Right.
So I think you guys need to do what you can. There isn't going to be a resolution to this because there's nobody missing from the meeting that would come next week and be able to help approve this.
I think what I'm thinking is that we will submit the minutes from the 26th as part of tonight's meeting minutes. And Dan, Zane, and I were here, and we can necessarily look at if there's any questions that we need to address on them. We can correct them or amplify them. And then submit this as part of tonight's minutes. Then it's part of the record.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just call the question and let's vote on it with the people that were here. It'd be us three. So I would call the question on the minutes.
I'll accept the call to question and we'll take a vote of the people that were in attendance on the 26th, if they approve the minutes of the 26th of March 2019 meeting, or if there's any changes or corrections. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved as they were submitted, and we will also have them, Brian, submitted as part of the minutes of tonight if anyone wanted to review them in the next meeting when it would get back into a normal sequence.
Who had the second on that? I'm sorry.
Zane.
No.
I made the
Oh,
motion.
he made the motion.
I seconded it.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
Yes, you can.
Well, I agree you can have a second. You
I can
just-
second it to forward it to the vote. That doesn't mean then the vote's a vote, but
Yeah, Craig was the second on that. Then
it's
it's
just
us
no
three.
parliamentary procedure.
All right, so anyway, I think we have that at least formally presented as part of the record. Items to be added to the agenda, I believe is addressed on the agenda copy on the door. It would be the election of the officers, and we'll move forward with that. So if we have any nominations for, how many positions do we have? A chairman and an alternate?
I would move that we nominate Christy Schultz to be the chairperson.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Moose to stay in that position.
Any other nominations? The nominations will be closed, and we have two candidates for the position.
Do we need a second?
Each one needs to be seconded, yes.
I'd second the nomination for Christy Schultz for chairperson.
I'll second the one for Mosh.
So we have a motion and seconds on two people, Christy Schultz or myself.
I'll move nomination cease.
We have a motion on the floor for nominations to cease. Is there a
Second.
Dan Clemish is the second. All in favor for motions to cease?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nominations are closed for the chairman of the planning commission. Now, in the past, we've had pieces of paper that we wrote our vote on.
You want to just vote by hands?
Doesn't matter to me. We should vote by
Your
hands.
call, I guess.
It's always.
We'll have it shortly.
Too long, it's pretty good reputation.
Hold him back on this, aren't you?
Adam, you're-
They don't look the same.
marvelous.
Turn it to Brian. Brian?
Brian, and you can be the vote grabber and tabulator.
This in here, Jason here.
Yep. Let's do.
While Brian's addressing that, so I got a continuation from January, and we didn't have a resolution through the March 26th was a special meeting. So back to October, there was 3 cases that were presented at the Planning Commission. And all 3 cases have been forwarded on to the county attorney. So all of that is moving forward to whatever position or outcome that will be determined. And when all that happens, I'm sure the county commission or planning commission will let people know what the resolution of that was as it went forward. So that should close those as open items that were kind of transitioning from the last year into this year. So I think that gives everybody the answer where it's going.
And we have no answers on them.
Right now, it just went to the county attorney.
Oh, okay.
It's in litigation.
Yeah, it's in
I think all of them
litigation.
are in litigation.
Oh,
Okay, final tally is Christie with 6 and Moose with 3.
So you get the chair. I'll change I'll get the whole table. I'll have space. I'll have space.
You get more real estate this way, right?
Exactly.
Does anyone want to check these?
We trust you. So the remaining of the meeting will be transitioned to Christie on the agenda, and then we'll continue with the rest of the agenda for the evening.
So I think we should probably vote for vice chair. So I would probably like.
I nominate Donna Frang for vice chair.
I'll second that.
I'll nominate Moose for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Move nomination cease.
I'll second that. Get all those?
Okay, let me, give me a second here. So,
Kind of rapid fire.
Frame for vice by Klimish, second by
Who seconded that?
Christie.
Yeah.
Christie.
Yes.
Seconded, okay. Moose, Eric,
Yep.
okay, seconded by Williams.
Yep.
I'm still learning voices here without watching faces. So. All right, so vice chair. Is there any chance I have 9 pieces of
I
paper?
move nomination cease.
Already said
Oh,
that.
sorry.
We need a vote on that.
Yeah, all those in favor of nomination ceasing? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Here, I have
I move that we use the backs of those pieces of paper.
I have these.
You go what?
Well, because it's the same person is on
Right.
one side, so if they
Yeah,
flip
right.
it over.
Yeah.
I can just turn, I got paper already.
I have these in here for next year, I have these.
It's getting smaller, so I'm not sure I would know.
I was gonna suggest you tear the papers in half, but I thought I'm being too much of a teacher here, so I'm sorry.
My fingers are already really heavy. Here's-
That's a lot of paper to write on. Thank you.
Please, those eyes. You just blend into the background. Camouflage.
Nope, I'm sorry.
Okay, on a vote of 6-3, Donna Ring is the new vice chair.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, next item on the agenda, ordinance overview, administrative sections 1805 and 1807, variances and conditional uses.
Basically, I just wanted to point these sections out. I'm not sure, this is my first official meeting in this position, and how things have done and how I've done in my other 15 other counties I work in. These are all sections, of course, out of your ordinance. These are sections which we will become very familiar with as we work through these issues. So any variance or any conditional use you hear before you, these will be expected to be utilized throughout the process. I don't write findings of fact. I won't write findings of fact because I'm not the board. You will write findings of fact through these sections of the ordinance. I'll help with motions. I'll clarify things, but I do not write findings of fact because I'm not the people appointed to do that job. So by this, I would say you hear it, and we can certainly work through this as we get through tonight, but as you go through it, you know, and what I've said earlier, and I've said to the county commissioners as I agreed to do this, is we will follow the book and you will follow these sections of the ordinance. So that's all I can ask for, to keep everyone running straight here and following these sections. It's difficult sometimes, but we hope to follow these as we go forward. And we'll certainly work through this as we work through the variances and the conditional use process. I didn't put in amendments, but they're very similar. But these are the two you'll see the most of probably, and that's why I focused on this. We can do more with it later, but that's all. I just wanted to hit those highlights for tonight. Thank you.
I would like to say something. I agree that the zoning administrator, whoever's acting as a zoning administrator, is not the person to write the findings of fact. I think that's been an ongoing problem with what's been done with the zoning department before. That being said, anybody who makes a motion here, everybody on this board can help you make the findings of fact. When I was on this board before, everybody, and there was 13 of us at times, would all work together to create the findings of fact that are needed to back up the decisions we make. So don't be afraid to make a motion. Don't be afraid to stand on your own. Everybody here, from both sides hopefully, is willing to help with findings of fact when it comes to a motion one way or the other. Even with some motions I may not agree with, I may be able to help with the findings of fact. And I may turn around and make a motion or vote against your motion. But findings of fact is the job of this board, not the job of the zoning administrator.
And so those sections can be found on page 119 and 120 and 121 as it extends through the variance process. In case you were looking for those in your book, those of you that might be new. All right. Any other questions on this agenda item before we move on? Or any other comments?
The agenda, yeah, if we could get everybody to turn in their signed job description at the end of the meeting.
Is that in the pack?
Yes.
Or Peter?
This would be for the new,
It's for everybody. I got one, I guess we could.
Total pack?
The new commissioner should have been like the second page in. It was
Yeah,
specific,
we got it.
specific to you.
If we need to make some copies, we can make some copies.
I don't have one. Yeah, because this is the minutes.
We get some copies of those.
We could probably do that at the end of the meeting and move forward
All right.
with the people that are here.
Sure. Okay. Next item on the agenda, the Zavadil. Variance. He is looking for, do you want me to read the legal into the record or not? In the past, we've done that, or is it enough just to mention the name, or?
I know in the past we've always done
We can read it.
Personally, I don't believe you have to read the legal into the record. If you have the address can pull up on Beacon, and it comes into the legal. Nobody knows where it is. If you read the legal, nobody knows how to find that. You can't even enter that legal into Beacon and find the piece of property. We know it was published that way. It was provide notice to the neighbors that way. I haven't had to do it, and there's nowhere in the ordinance that requires it to be done that way. So, I mean, if you choose to do it, that's fine because it's been done, but there's nothing in the ordinance that requires it.
Okay.
So it's up to you as a board to make your decision there. We can go by address where possible.
All right, sure. Okay, so the Zavadil variance is the next item on the agenda. The address is 4203 Herman's Loop in Yankton, South Dakota, 57078. He is looking for a variance of accessory building size. He would like to increase the permitted 1,200 square feet to 1,496 square feet. Is there someone to speak on this variance?
Yeah, you have to do it.
The applicant would come forward, that'd be lovely, thank you.
They'd much rather hear you than me.
Would you like me to be here?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
And then if you could state your name for the record?
Okay, my name is Bob or Robert Zavadil, and my property lies west of Yankton, roughly 2.5 miles on Highway 314, and it's in the 9-acre addition. It was originally called the Swartz addition, and my house, like you can see on the picture there, is on the far east end. And my first thought was to build a building, I was going to extend my garage and come back. And I looked at it, and I couldn't come back very far because of the trapezoidal shape of it. I would hit the property line, within a few feet. And I thought, well, my next option was to go on the east side of the house, and that allowed me to put in a decent-sized shed of that square feet. I really didn't want to do it. I've been looking for a piece of land since 2002, and no one is interested in selling any kind of piece of land. They just don't want to give it up. As soon as you ask them, no, they don't want to sell their land. So this is kind of the last resort. I feel that this will fit my needs real well. And I don't see it being an issue. My house, as well as the neighbor across the road, are the only houses out there, or property out there, that doesn't have a covenant. They were one of the first 2 residents being built there. And as far as another building of that size, my neighbor has a 1,944 square foot shed on his house or on his property. And I feel that if I build one, I could complement his. I mean, it wouldn't be something that's going to be gaudy. It's going to be as nice as I can make it. And it'll fit in the neighborhood, you know.
Is that your neighbor to the north across the road?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes. And I don't know if you can see it on your map, but that's my options. My current garage is so small, I can't get a full-size pickup in it. It's 20 by 22, and then the steps inside, coming out of the house into there, protrudes out about, and you probably have the same thing I have in front of me. I think it's like 34 inches. So when you drive in, your vehicles are almost like a foot or 16 inches apart. You just can't open your doors or nothing. I mean, if you do, you hit the other vehicle, and sometimes we have to be pretty careful. We put something up like a coat or something there so we don't ding the other vehicle. So it was just built too small. And my idea is to, if I build this shed, I would use it as a 1-car garage because it's so small. It just doesn't fit my needs at all, and I've been putting up with this for quite a few years. I've been there since 1981. I've lived at this residence, and I feel it's time now that I do something. And I'm hoping that you feel the same way I do and agree with me.
What's the sidewall height?
12 foot.
12 foot.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna have a secondary driveway like?
Yes, yes. It'll be in front of that shed, going to that road in front of there.
You
Straight.
mentioned the covenants. Is there anything regarding, I know you are not affected by that covenants, but anything regarding additional access from the road or from Herman's Loop? Is there anything preventing
No,
a second driveway or?
no, nope. And you can see how the property line lies up front. It goes across half of my driveway. And actually, my trees and stuff are on the outside. That's the way I bought the property, so, you know, that's just the way it is.
Bob,
Yes.
where is it going to be south of your house, the building?
It'd be more east and south. Yeah, it's not gonna be next to the road, no. It's gonna be put back, set back a ways, yeah.
And you met the setbacks from the road?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a dark line marked on here. Is that their proposal that you know? Do you know?
There must be.
Just off the,
just draw one in there.
is that about?
Yes, right in there.
Okay, sure, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Is this a
So
county
the-
road or is this a private?
County road.
County road?
So just for the audience, I guess, the proposed, your new garage, the corner, the northwest corner would
That would be
come right
the,
up against the southeast corner of your house, kind of in that line. That's
Right.
where that shed would sit.
Looks like a little mouse to the right of
oh, well, it should,
Straight ahead, it looks like a real mouse.
oh, there.
the button's on top. See?
Well, I
The
mean.
button right on top
a real
lights it up into a
silver
mouse. See?
I'll just, oh, just a laser.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yes.
Yes, and behold.
It would be right there, kind of in that square, in that area. It's hard to get it exact, but that's where it would lie, right in there.
talk to the county highway superintendent about access, putting in another driveway, whether a culvert will be required?
No, I haven't.
About like that?
No, I did none of that because I figured, well, I have to get a permit first and then I'll proceed from there.
Does the board have any other questions for him before I ask for public comment?
So even if, regardless of whether the driveway happens afterwards, you still want to build a shed, this shed, even if you have to access it through your existing driveway?
I couldn't do that. I'd have to have a separate drive, right, or driveway up to that road. There's just no way to,
Yeah, we've got this line drawing here, that's why I was just curious.
yeah.
That's-
Yeah. Yeah, I did not put the driveway, or did I, on that drawing? I don't think I did.
I don't see one on it.
No, I didn't.
I think we'd have to attach something with that. If the driveway was approved.
Yeah, it'd have to be contingent upon.
Contingent upon,
Okay.
Yeah.
Where would you come in? Show me on this, you drive in from right here or from this side? Which side would you?
I don't know which way.
14, it won't come off
Okay.
14.
Don't come off of this here.
He has to come off.
Is this another?
Show everybody where you'd access the garage.
Because you could come from over.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be either.
Which way?
You could come in from the east is what
I could, but I don't want to take any more trees out than what I have
yeah,
to.
no, and I think the north is the.
Yeah,
Lot.
I do have to take out 2 trees anyway.
Yeah,
So-
Sherman.
And this would be the least invasive, I think, to make that driveway come straight forward up to the north to the existing county road there.
You'd be coming from north to south.
Right.
So everybody knows.
Mm-hmm. I did look at that option, like you said, coming in from the east, but then I thought, well, I'm gonna tear out a lot of evergreens, and I didn't want to do that. They're healthy trees, and so I thought the north would be the
I
best.
think we'd rather see it on the north anyway, so people don't turn the corner. And
Right. No
back
blind
a trailer
spots.
in or something and
Yes.
hang on the road.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Anything you want to add before I ask for public input?
No, I think I pretty much explained everything that pertains to the building, what my needs are and what I want to do with it, so I guess it's up to you and the people
All right.
to decide whether or not.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would feel they would like to come and speak in favor of this proposed change?
Patty Graham Cohen. I'm very familiar with Bob's lot. I think it would be great. He does have a nice perimeter of evergreens that are very big, very well-established, mature growth. And if you would see anything, Bob, would you just see the roof? Where did he go? Is that all you would see would be the peak?
You wouldn't even see that. The tree's
See-
probably 30 foot tall.
Yeah, so, you know, he's thought about it. Did you think about your drain field? I was wondering. You know, he's thought about it and obviously talked to Bill, his neighbor across the road, about it, so I think it's good to go.
Anyone else that would like to speak on this subject? Anyone that would like to speak against this proposed change? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion or more discussion from the board?
I think there should be more discussion. I mean, when I look at this, I look at it and I say, how is this, this property or this structure any different than any of the others in the neighborhood? I mean, that's line 3A, a written application for variance is submitted demonstrating that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to this land structure or building involved and which are not applicable to other land structures and buildings in the same district. I don't see this one's any different than anything else. When we look up and down, I drove that property today, and I'm concerned about the size of that structure being on that lot. I'm concerned about visibility for Highway 314. When you look at this, basically this structure is going to be the same size as existing residents. It just doesn't seem to fit the neighborhood.
say something? What about my neighbor in a 1,944 square foot building? His house is the same size as mine. So how do you justify saying that he's right, not wrong?
Well, the planning board has recommended a fair amount of variances over the last 20 years. And I can't imagine out of the hundreds of variances that we approved, more than a handful that actually met 3A. To be honest with you, the problem isn't necessarily with the property, the house, or the garage. It's the way in which we find to maneuver through our zoning ordinances to approve these. And I think we'll take this up later this evening. We should be doing something different than variancing all these properties. Variances should be very hard to come by. The problem is we have a zoning that doesn't fit the needs very well of our county. So the variance process is about the only way that we found to maneuver past these things. When we make our finding of facts, we will never be able to meet every one of the things under section 1807. If one of them stands out and it's so egregious that it makes us vote against the variance, that I understand. But to believe that somehow we will ever meet all of these with any variance that you have ever approved in the past is not true. It simply doesn't happen.
I think we do meet it. If you look at many of the other lots, okay, the one directly to the west is slightly trapezoidal, not near to what this one is. You keep going west and they square up. And I guess furthermore, the way this house was built with that garage on the west side up against there is different than the majority of the homes on there with the, you know, there's not another one with the trapezoidal lot in the same fashion, limiting him from
Joe. Yeah, there is. Look at the aerial. I mean, you can go back to the photo, the one right next to it has the same size lot, same shaped lot.
He's farther back, farther set back from the property line, and then when you keep going west, they square up.
To me, the argument you're making about the shape of the lot is, it goes back to if you wanted a variance on setbacks, and that's not what he's asking for. He's asking for a variance in size, so it doesn't make any sense. He can actually put a legal building in there.
Sure.
That's not stopping him from putting a legal building in there.
Sure.
So his, you know, his grievances, I just can't, I don't.
Well, I think his grievance was that he would add on to the garage, but he cannot due to the. That is correct.
Can't go to the garage.
He would prefer to add on to the garage.
Okay, but you're not gonna add on 1,400 square foot if you could. You're gonna add on 1,200. I mean, the thing is, building another building because you don't have room for your garage is fine. It's just that you're building it bigger than what you know, you're asking for bigger. So really, I don't see a grievance.
I can tell you that originally, in the zoning, the first go around of the permanent zoning, there was no sizes on accessory buildings other than they had to be less than the size of the primary structure.
Right.
That was what we started with.
Yep.
That had its own problems. It was a huge inequity to somebody with a small house compared to somebody with a big house. And that's how we came around to the sizes. You know, in the long run, there was, you know, quite a bit of discussion about where I would have liked to have seen it gone, and that was into the conditional use part of the ordinance. Get away from the variance, put it in a conditional use, make oversized buildings and oversized sidewalls a conditional use, but give them no variances. If it doesn't fit in the lot, which talks to exactly what you're talking about, then it's not the right place for this. But if you can have a building of bigger than the size that's spoken as allowed in your district, it could have been a conditional use and therefore gotten totally out of the variance process. And I believe if it was in the conditional use process, we could go through the findings of fact and be a lot more in line with what we have in the conditional use process than we are in the variance process. Variances should be hard to get, but the zoning that we have makes it the only way to move forward sometimes.
As it went from the last county commission to the election and everything else, one of the things was identified, at least in the January meeting, was that the size of accessory structures was an issue that needed to be addressed. In the time that I've been on the planning commission, I mean, you know, a lot of it was a consideration of where the property was sitting at, the zoning that was in hand, and whether it was right or wrong. The real history is that we have granted people the ability, and I'm a property rights guy, we allow people the right to use the property. So one of the things that was to kind of catch everybody up, I think it was the January meeting when the new commission came on, that they were looking at, one, we have issues in the county zoning ordinances that need to be looked at, addressed, and updated because they go back to 2003. So I think that, you know, you have to kind of take into balance the precedence that has been over the years, whether it's right or wrong, and then also looking at the location of where the property is at, you know, what its current zoning is, the density of the area. I mean, we have some transitional properties where this piece is like ag, but like right next door is something else, and the guy wants to build a machine shed on an ag property, and the guy next door says, yeah, but it blocks my view across the hill. And I think we got to look at that. We know we have issues, but I also think we have to look at some of the considerations that we've given over, say, the last 8 years, and continue a balance somehow in that method that, you know, we're getting a balance.
Well, and people do have more things now. I mean, they have campers, they have boats, they have all of these extra vehicles or recreational items that they want to be inside. And as a zoning board and in Yankton County, frankly, things look neater when they're inside a building rather than sitting outside, besides, of course, obvious damage that happens with the weather. I haven't heard any discussion or problems from the neighbors where it's a 12-foot sidewall that's not exceedingly high where it's going to block somebody's view of the lake. We don't have that kind of a situation. And I don't see a big problem with it, personally.
Well, if I understand this correctly, if this was a 30 by 40 building, the same sidewall height, we wouldn't even be here, right? So we're talking about 296 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page
Yep.
here.
Yep,
Which
that's true.
296 feet, to most people, you wouldn't even notice the difference between a 34 by 44, I think is what is proposed, and a 30 by 40. So, and that allows him to enjoy his property, which it sounds like the rest of the neighborhood is enjoying their properties with larger buildings also. You know, I don't see such an issue.
I personally don't have any issue with the building. I don't have any issue, you know, I think it fits well in that property. I'm just saying now, we're starting off here, is this how we're going to legislate our zoning, is through variances? I mean, you know, okay, the next one that comes up, it's next month is going to be 1,600, and then it's going to be, I mean,
well, I think
I think a variance is fine, but the variance, I don't see what we're hanging our hat on here.
I agree with that, Donna. I think,
I look at 3B, I guess, is what I look at.
we, you know, what Moose's effect, we identified accessory structures at the beginning of the year as one of the #1 items that this board needs to work on. I don't have it in front of me, but Pat had given us a print off, and we've given, how many was it, 50 variances?
it was a lot.
In the past handful of years. And I think we all agree that, I think almost everyone probably agrees that if this read different, there's no concern with the building on that property. It's just, do we meet the ordinance? And I would like to get out of the business of granting variances.
To me, it seems like the only grievance we have that we can say the reason that we're granting this variance is that he's coming in 2019 and not 2020.
Right.
And
I have-
sometimes that's how you win.
I mean, it's like, we want to clean that up so that he doesn't have, we don't have to do this, but, you know.
Well, I think it needs to be cleaned up. I have concerns, I guess, with the precedence that's been set, and at what point do we draw the line, or
Right.
do we, and I guess for me, I'm comfortable as long as we are committed to
rectifying the problem, basically.
right.
I don't see any other way to move forward, because this isn't the only one.
No.
Until the change is made, which can be made fairly quickly. If the board ends up agreeing, you know, in just a meeting or two, we can move forward with that. But until that happens, there is no other way. I mean, it isn't like you've got 20 years of people trying to do this, and there was no other way to work this through the zoning ordinance than through the variance process. You know, there is no other way other than you can't just hold your nose and say yes without finding some kind of thing to hang your hat on in the ordinance. And this is the only one that was able to be found in the 10+ years I was on there.
Well, one of the other things I think that needs to be looked at is, you know, we've all identified the variance, the zoning thing doesn't work. So it can't be done at night, but like at the next county commission, it certainly could be that the commission looks at and says, okay, here's a deadline date. So we're gonna have the zoning ordinance on accessory structures updated and put in effect by X, whatever it is, 1 October, 1 September, or something, right? Then you can go back into the standard where you're at. And I agree with John that I don't think it should take all months to get it changed, but it's been publicly identified that this needs to be fixed. So I think one of the things, and again, it doesn't really relate to this, but one of the things is set a goal, this is the date we're gonna have it reviewed, and then you can tell people, okay, here's the deal. Right now, we're changing how the game is on 1 September or whatever else. And then it's almost the chips fall where they are, is you gotta go by the rules or you don't, right? So
I think the county commission did that, and they set April as the deadline. And how many meetings were called to discuss that? I mean, you were the chairman. I don't think a single meeting was called to discuss that, so I guess I'd urge the
With all
new
due respect, though,
chairperson.
Dan, I think that
Well,
there,
when I'm-
no,
can I
just,
finish? Can
no,
I
not
finish?
this time you can't.
So
Because the
anyway,
reality of this is that there were meetings that were postponed. So you gotta remember that too. You don't wanna point the finger at Moose and say that he wasn't calling meetings, because meetings were postponed.
What meetings was postponed?
Well,
February, March.
Last time I checked, the chairman is the person who calls meetings. And that's in our ordinance.
So Dan,
And I would ask that that be one of the top priorities we discuss tonight, and hopefully we have, you know, a resolution soon.
So what I'd like to do is move it back to Mr. Evans, if I pronounce your name wrong, Mr. Zavadil, property application. And then, when we go into additional items on the agenda, then we can bring that back in, because that's a separate issue than what we have right now.
I agree with that. We should get back to Mr. Zavadil's application.
Taking up his time.
In that vein, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
From 1,200 square feet to 1,496 square feet.
I'll second.
And you can put in the findings of fact that there were no neighbors that objected to it, no one's view was obstructed by it. And it has a 12-foot sidewall height, which is not an issue in the neighborhood. He has trees that buffer that building from the neighbor's view.
And you also have an immediate neighbor that spoke in favor of this building.
You know, most of the time when I was on the board, a lot of what we tried to do was go through either the variance or the conditional use process, actually number by number, letter by letter, and state as much as we could how many of them we could approve. We could never approve all of them,
No.
you know, very often. And there'll be some that simply are not egregious enough to make us feel that we can't vote for it. But there will be some that are that are simply not able to be met. That's just part of the ordinance. Not every single thing we do will meet every single finding of fact in this ordinance. 18071A, strict application of this ordinance would produce an undue hardship. You know, he has other people in his neighborhood that have larger buildings. Whether it's an undue hardship or not is hard to say. Such hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district. And that is the case because he has other buildings in the zoning district that are the same or larger. The authorization of this variance would not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent properties. Not only would it not be, nobody out there apparently believes it is, nobody's in here tonight. The granting of the variance is based on reasons of demonstrable and exceptional hardship as distinguished from variations for the purpose of caprice, profit, or convenience. The hardship to me is always that our zoning ordinance doesn't give us a cleaner way to go with this. It's clear that these have been granted in the past. It's clear they're going to be granted in the future. And it's clear that we got to find a better way to do this. It says no variance should be recommended for approval unless the Planning Commission finds that the condition or situation of the property or the intended use of the property is not so general or recurring of a nature to make it reasonably practicable. The formulation of a general regulation to be adopted as an amendment to this ordinance. There we are. There's the one that comes out to me. We should be adopting a general regulation to this ordinance that affects these oversized accessory structures. That's what we should be doing. Number 3, Eric talked about he felt it doesn't meet it, and let's face it, it doesn't meet something. But number 3B, the literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance. And this does not say by his neighbors. This is properties in the same district. And these properties in these districts, these buildings in these districts have been okayed throughout Yankton County, mostly in the lake area, but throughout Yankton County. You know, bigger than what's allowed in the district. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of this applicant. The actions of this applicant are building the building, but the special conditions that go is the fact that we put a number in the zoning ordinance that probably is a little bit too small for some of the lots in the district. In other words, we have a district that's medium density, and sometimes we have a whole bunch of lots that are small, you know, over ½ an acre, less than an acre. And many of these shouldn't have the ability to build a shed of this size. If you can't build a shed of this size without having it fit on your lot, without having variances from setbacks, from front lines, from back lines, from sidelines, that's the point where you should be saying no to these things. When they don't fit on the lot. When you want 1,800 square feet and you need to be within 5 feet of the sideline and 15 feet of the back line, that's the point where I would draw the line and say no. But as long as you can fit this thing well in your lot, which this appears to do, I can't see why this shouldn't be able to be granted. The granting of this variance does not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other land structures or buildings in the same district. It's clear that these have been approved for other buildings in the district. To me, that's the majority of the finding of facts. The rest just talks about having a public hearing and all that type of stuff.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Can that motion read exactly what he just said, that the applicant complies with those sections of the ordinance?
It should.
Yeah.
You could be able to get it off the, it's hard, I realize it's hard to.
Did you make the motion?
I did make the motion, and for all the things I say, I don't expect you to take shorthand notes on that, but you can get it always off the recording. In other words,
basically all I'm going to say is that the applicant complies with, I'm not going to read the entire thing, I'll just say the applicant complies with section 1807, items 1 through
I read all the way through, through three. Yeah.
And
Actually,
that's-
through
that's
four.
all wanna
I read
say.
through
There's
four.
your findings of fact right
Yep.
there.
4, yeah.
You didn't get into 4.
I didn't get into 4, that's a public hearing thing, that's not really a finding of fact for me.
No, that's not
No, you
conforming
didn't.
You
to
read number
neighboring
4.
land structures. 4 was in
Maybe it's
there.
number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand
That's
corrected.
the neighbor has it rule.
Believe me, I know you've read it all.
Okay. I said I don't write motions, I just want to confirm what you said.
That's what I said. If you want to say that through 4, I did all that. Because I'll be checking. I'll be checking what did I done.
At least we have video now to confirm, makes it easier. So motion by Harper, seconded by Clemish. Okay, ready? All right. Eric,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Frame,
Yes.
Clemish.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, next item on the agenda, Melha, address is 30235 439th Avenue. Yankton, I'm assuming?
Its address is Yankton.
Okay, in Yankton, South Dakota, 57078. We are looking for a variance on his yard.
There should be a few handouts to this to include the,
It's in, I believe it's in Central Township, Section 35, for those who have a plot map.
Oh, okay. The variance is 75 feet of the yard to 20 feet on the west side yard, a variance of 55 feet, and a variance of from 75-foot yard to a 55-foot front yard, a variance of 20 feet. The applicant owns 65.55 acres surrounding the parcel and 156 acres immediately north of the parcel. Applicant is willing to place a covenant running with the land prohibiting the splitting of the property at any time. And if you could come forward, Marvin, and speak to that? Is there someone to speak to this?
I want to give one brief background here.
Oh, sure.
The unique part of this is there is an existing home. Mr. Melhoff's and his wife's home is there. They are wanting to stay on the farm longer than, instead of, I believe they sold some property in Texas. As such, their daughter is moving here, has purchased a new manufactured home that is going to be placed on the family farm there where a home was. So made the determination that it fits the family farm unit, 2 parcels, thus the reason for the restrictive covenant to further ensure us that it's not going to be, and also the reason that I've noted how many acres were in the area surrounding it. So they do have the property surrounding this farmstead, as well as, I believe, another 80 to the north?
156.
Yeah, another quarter to the north, and then there's other holdings too in Yankton County plus elsewhere. So this is an additional dwelling on the family farm unit without being platted out. That is what's requiring the variance. So we're just you're dealing with the variance tonight, if everyone's comfortable with that. So, thank you. Mr. Mello, you can come up here.
I'd like to make one statement. I don't hear too good. I'd like to have my son-in-law take the
That-
answers. I'll answer questions. but-
Sure. Yeah, you can
You
both
can
come
both
up
come
if
up,
you
that would
want.
be great.
And if you could just state your name when you get up there. for the
My
record.
name's Charles Leonard.
And I'm Marvin Malhoff.
There used to be a trailer home on this property So the infrastructure is there, there's septic, water and electric hookup for it already. So we're looking to move a new one onto, in the same location, use that infrastructure for it. For a period of time, we don't know what the time is, but like was said, we don't want to subdivide it, you know, to make that a standalone lot at any time, so.
Can you guys tell me much about the manufactured home itself? We do actually have for the board in section 1507, we do have some standards for a manufactured home.
Yeah.
When it's placed anywhere. We need to know things like what kind of a roof it has on it, what kind of siding it has on it, the overall width of it.
It's 16 foot by 55 foot. I'm sorry, by 60 foot. It's a new home. 312 pitch with asphalt shingles. I believe it has 6-inch walls on it, and the siding, I'm not sure. I think it's smart siding.
Something that's not tin anyway, that's
correct. It's not, you're right.
This is a new home you're purchasing.
Yep.
Do you know what kind of a foundation? Because we also have foundation conditions in here that we're supposed to meet.
As far as I know, who will move it in there will set up a foundation and also anchor it down.
Okay, so you don't know if it's a pier system, if it's a perimeter system, if it's...
I believe it's probably going to be a perimeter system.
Brian, they'll have to provide all that information to you, I assume.
Right, and then we discussed it, and then he switched dealers, but he's very familiar with the standards. His first one was actually 13 feet 9 inches.
Yeah, we were going to have to get a 5-inch variance or something like that.
They switched manufactured homes because they wanted 14 feet.
Well, I don't want to say, you know, anything in favor or against this thing, but there are stuff in here that's either going to have to be varianced or something because we have performance standards for a manufactured home placed in the country.
Yeah.
So we either have to variance some of these if whatever it doesn't meet. In other words, it's supposed to be, according to this, supposed to be 20 feet wide.
That's not what we're hearing tonight, though. The
That
variances
should just be administrative. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Not in the ag district, because it should be 14 in ag.
Yeah.
Should be manufactured home standards 2.
1507 says manufactured homes placed within the applicable zoning district shall comply with the following requirements.
Manufactured 1 and 2.
Page 102 in the book, the new book you gave me. We've been through this before, you know, and had to variance parts. In other words,
Right.
you know, it may be just we variance the width. It may be, you know, it may be that we ask you to do something different than what they're asking you to do as far as foundation or something.
What's interesting with that is manufactured homes come in multiples of 16 width.
I can't tell you why it's 20.
I understand, and if this, again, I'm just saying, if we're fixing zoning ordinances,
That's not even
that
in
they
Well,
don't
there
make a
was-
20-foot wide
That's not
modular home.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I seen it in what he showed me, but it was like 13 foot 9.
It's 1509.
state.
So page 43.
Takes you to 1509 performance standards 2.
Yeah, 14 feet. I think that is actually a misprint. 20 feet wide is not a normal width for a manufactured home.
That's the minimum. So we have, in the ag district, it states manufactured homes as permitted use pursuant to section 1509, which is, that's the second standard, the lesser standard that doesn't have, that's a 14-foot wide home, minimum.
Right.
And it doesn't have the same type of foundation standards and so forth, it has lesser standard. Then we have manufactured home standards 1, which it's generic and say applicable, so you have to go district by district. Ag district has the lesser standards, but if you go to some of the residential districts, you're gonna have more restrictive standards, at least 20 feet wide, i.e. a double wide, is what we're trying to write.
14 little singles.
Yeah.
14, so we're saying the ag district can be 14 feet wide, And instead of going through all the districts at this time, some are 20, some are 14. But ag are permitted at 14.
So that's apparently the only real difference. Although it doesn't talk about, in the performance standards 2, it doesn't talk about the foundation piers either, does it?
Anchored.
It says it's anchored to the ground, as you would with any manufactured home. Any mobile home needs to be anchored.
And 7 rolls into the HUD standards, which also has specific pier and anchoring requirements.
Right.
Both have that. Well, from the applicant's statement, it appears that we have the correct roofing, we have the correct pitch, and we have the correct siding. And that gives us the correct body width of 14 feet. The other things we have is the skirting is not supposed to be highly combustible. I can't imagine.
Correct.
If you got a professional person, they're not gonna, you're not gonna go out there and put OSB around the bottom.
Right.
No straw bins.
Anchored to the ground to resist tipping and lateral movement. And it's gotta meet
HUD guidelines,
manufactured
which
home
anything
standard.
that's a new mobile home will meet their HUD
It certainly
guidelines.
meets the 1975 stuff.
Yeah, so if it's a new one, it should meet that.
If I can interrupt, I think it's fine to go through these to make sure we don't have to come back in front of us for variance again. But these are permitted in the ag district.
They are.
So,
He's not asking for,
yeah.
Right, so all he needs is a yard variance.
yard
He's here for
variance.
the yard
Right.
variance.
whether it's permitted or whether it's a variance or something to put it there, it still has to meet one of the two of these manufactured.
What I'm
homes.
saying is it doesn't, this board doesn't have to
Go through
make
all
sure
of
that
this.
it meets it. That would be the administrators when he gets building permit.
But you still gotta make sure it meets it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, I'm assuming that the reason you need the yard variances is so you can use the existing infrastructure, is that correct?
Correct. Moving it elsewhere on the property kind of interrupts the flow of the use of some of the other buildings that are there. And then also having to reinstall a new septic system would get kind of costly.
Expensive, yep.
When did the old mobile home, when did that get torn down? Was that recent?
No,
Many
that was
years ago,
moved
or-
off of there. Do you remember?
I moved it on in '94 and took it off in '96 or '97,
So it's been a while.
except the septic tank and all of that is still buried there, and the water line and all that stuff.
Okay. And you own the property surrounding.
Yes.
Yeah, we sent him a letter.
I also think this is a pretty unique piece of property. I mean, it's not like we're sitting in a regular lot. This is actually an existing farmstead lot. It's not like we're affecting the guy next door where the house is at. And really the setback is almost like when you read this, the setback is inside its own yard. So, I mean, this is, I think that,
Pretty simple one.
Well, this has been identified as something that we want to promote, you know what I mean? It doesn't work out that often that it works because of financial concerns of somebody owning a piece on a trailer house or a house on another person's property. So it
Right.
does, when it does work out, it's nice to see that it can work out and you can have another family on the farm place and make it work. It is something identified in the book that we want to promote, so.
It'd probably help you.
Well, yeah, he's there to help his parents.
That's the main thing.
That shows you're a good papa.
You know the old saying, be nice to your kids to pick your nursing home.
Must have done it right.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the applicant before I ask for public input? All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this proposed change? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak against this proposed change? Okay, hearing none, the public input part of this particular discussion is closed. Do we have any more discussion on this from the board or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Approve? Second.
Based on what?
Based on the hardship of the need to put the mobile home and connect it to the existing infrastructure, and that his elderly parents need assistance.
How about a section and number of the book? Without reading the entire thing.
Didn't read it all, just most of it.
This isn't in the book either, but I'd also like to add that he owns the property that it's next to as well.
That can be part of the motion.
Yeah.
I'd like that.
So if we'd add that. I'd say section 1807, section 1A, the strict application of this ordinance would produce an undue hardship. You'd have to probably dig another septic system, move electrical, move plumbing.
And B would also apply. These neighbors don't have the exact same circumstances as he does.
So the same as the last one?
Yep, go 1 through.
You want to amend your motion, Clea?
I think we could just add this if you're
Just
okay
add
with
it,
that.
just add it.
I think
That's
that would
fine.
make more sense.
That's fine.
1 through 4, section 1807.
So will the motion include the covenant?
Oh, yes, make sure that is in there as well. Thank you for catching that.
To
And
make sure
own
that
the
never
property around.
gets split.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure that never gets split.
Yeah, they gave me a draft, we'll work it out, the register deeds or something to make that reportable. And you want the owning the ground around, correct?
Yes.
Something I heard. Everyone understand that motion?
Before we have a vote on this, a question I just thought of. So we're actually gonna have 2 residential structures at the same address. So I'm not sure how we address it, but.
You usually go A or B?
Right, so, you know, that it ends up being the same number, but I think we need to have that also in the motion, that's got a specific, like 911 identifiable
True.
address. Like, you know, this is, the address is whatever, 439,
Right.
A,
That's very good.
primary, B, secondary.
Do you know if the previous, if there was a second address there?
Probably not in 94,
Probably
Joe.
not.
Yes.
Been too old.
There used to be.
I don't know if we had
So
that. I don't know if we
mine
had
is
when they come out.
35, my mother's was 37.
No,
There you go.
yeah, no. I wonder what year they did.
So is this variance including section 513, number 5 with the additional structures, the additional dwellings?
That really isn't a variable, that's a use, not a variance, so it wouldn't be a variance, that's just allowed in that section. So if you maybe agree to that, it's more as being allowed a second dwelling in the farm. It's something that the zoning administrator can do, but I will certainly appreciate your
Because it
support.
says it's prohibited, so we should address that probably. Right?
What's prohibited?
What section are you looking at, Eric?
It says it's, actually, if it's,
513.
my understanding is if he didn't need a
5.
variance, he could have simply done this.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
In other words, you
It said
could have used
prohibited.
513,
Well, it says right above there, prohibited uses and structures 511. 513 minimum lot requirements.
No, we're looking at 513.5.
Yep. Okay, so as long as it's another member of the same farm family unit, we're fine.
yeah, he could have put an additional dwelling on. If he hadn't needed the variance to the sideline, he could have just done it.
Correct.
met the performance standards. I didn't mean to jump on the zoning administrator about the performance standards, I just didn't know.
We went through them.
Yeah, that we had gone through them, I saw nothing in here to do with them at all, so.
Mr. Leonard and I had gone through them, so that's why we knew we needed 113. So, okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote when you're ready.
Let's see. Welch.
Yes.
Harper.
Yes.
Healy.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Frame.
Yes.
Flemish.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes,
Williams.
Yes.
motion carried.
All right.
Okay, next item on the agenda, Mueller Lickness, North Highway 81, Raspberry Lane, Yankton. Plat and variances, minimum lot sizes, lots 1 and 2 of tract B.
So you have two tracks here being taken out of a larger lot. I have some notes on the pages there. Lickness is not a party to the plat at this point. They're a neighbor. So at this point, it's simply Mueller's are interested in it. I believe Mueller or Lickness may become a party, and that's why they were mentioned us throughout the process. The access was looked at. They're represented by an attorney. He consulted with me yesterday. He did not approach DOT for an access on the one with the snout going out to 81, which is that tract 1 that touches 81. I'm sorry, I put mine down. It's just at the top of the hill at 81 where Mark Riken had built a house up there at Raspberry Patch or Raspberry Lane up there as you go out, coming out of the Poverty Valley, basically in that area. So you're creating a tract one 11 acres and one of just over 12. They're both going to be independent, and neither one of them will be attached to either property.
Can you bring it up on the screen, Brian? I
Yeah.
drove that property today, and it's really hard to tell where it's at, and I didn't see that it was marked at all with signs.
It's 19.
So that is the tract in its entirety, and I believe they're splitting it almost right down from that top point, straight line north and south, with 11 acres going to the east. And
You're saying what's in blue?
yeah, the blue is the entire tract. So the entire tract, this they're going to look at for an access to 81. I don't believe it was pursued. With the way DOT is, I highly doubt with all the driveways coming off here, this would even be an option. And then a split, I think, is basically from this point going straight north to south here. You can see they have Raspberry Lane comes across here and down, none of which touches these parcels. And I believe,
So do they have an easement to access that?
That would be, no, to the best of my knowledge, there are no easements to access this, at least not on the plat before you. I don't see easements on the plat. And Mr. Mueller, they do own these two parcels here. And the Lickness property is here, the Mueller property is here, and then this is the property in question.
So their access would be from that lane right here.
Right in the middle there, right there.
It shows on the bottom of this plat.
Well, to that driveway, that's a driveway right to their, right there to their garage.
But that would be their access to that property then? That's the
You'll
same
have to
owner?
ask them that
That's the
question,
same
I
owner,
guess.
though.
That's the same owner from these two parcels, yes. Own, or platting these. I don't know who the owner is going to be after they're platted. So that would be a question for the applicant. So we have, right now, we have a variance request for those two parcels to take them down, as I said, to 11 for the one going to the east and 12.33 for the one going to the west.
So right now it's a conforming parcel. It conforms to the,
20-acre rule right
Right.
now, yes.
and I'm asking for a variance to make it a non-conforming part. Am I oversimplifying this, or?
No, you've got it, nailed it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was
Okay.
that easy. So they own track C and D on this map, but not track E? This was, what was it?
Right.
Right.
Yes, and yes.
But they're all separate, so C and D and B are separate parcels at this time.
Correct. I don't believe they own south. No, but all good questions, hopefully for the applicant. So, but as I know from a distance, yes, they do own those two here off to the side on the western edge of the property, and then they own the large tract there, the 22.33, or 22, yeah, 0.33 acre tract.
And no intention to combine anything, they actually want them to be completely separate.
Any conversations I've had with at least the attorney representing them, the answer was no.
So what this would do is it would give you a track B with no road access as it's laid out. And even if they say that it's only gonna be us that has it, well, then they would need to replat track B in the right condition into one property that has road access. Or you just develop a lot that doesn't have any road access, and you could then effectively sell track B and it's landlocked.
Both
Talk to the applicant.
B1 and 2 would be, technically.
Right now, technically you have access across the Mueller property to the east, one of those two lots, the smaller of the two, to one of the track, well, technically to both of them, except for the fact is, who mentioned, once they're sold or once they're platted, those are, in essence, almost walls going up, so without access shown. And that's certainly your discussion this evening. And then, of course, the variance, and then we have a plat following up after that.
See, I think you could do what is presented there, but it would have to have an easement listed on it right now, that if it was sold in the future, how are you gonna get to this?
Right.
We should let
Okay,
him
let
explain to
applicant
us.
come forward and
conclusions.
explain it to us.
That'd be easier.
If you would, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am Ken Mueller, owner of the property. This is Micah and Tabitha, our neighbors to the east. Yes. This is pretty interesting to me. You guys got a pretty tough job at times. You go through a lot of stuff, and it's kind of an eye-opener. I appreciate what you do. So, going on from that, I guess, about 6 months ago, do you want to go through the process we went through a little bit?
Sure.
Maybe
we should start in 2008. When we bought our, okay, so we bought our property from Mark and Melanie Riken, the Riken Limited Family Partnership. And at the time, it was a 160-acre lot. We were hoping to buy more. I think they came to the commission at the time, came off this parcel, this really large parcel. We were really hoping to get more than 10 acres, but at the time, that was what they were willing to sell. And so that's how we ended up with this 10-acre lot. Our home is here, and we are only on 10 acres right now. So the first variance to peel that off of their 160 was in 2008. We just were kind of, we're locked in by nobody wanting to give up any property. And so that's when an opportunity came up about a year ago.
The house, sorry.
What's that?
You did not build the house.
No, it was built in 2006. I'm sorry, I think I said 2008. In 13, I'm sorry, 13. So I believe the home was built in 2006, and we purchased it, and the variance would have come through in 2013, when we bought it, summer of 2013. At the time, we got the 10 acres, so that was, I'm assuming, a variance at the time. Then this last year, Rhonda Hofer was looking for a buyer for her 3 parcels, and that's kind of when we met Ken, because we were both interested parties in the parcels, him in all the property, him in this one.
That bigger property.
Yeah, we were interested in trying to get a little bit more land around our house. Micah for hunting, and me just because I like to have no other people around and houses and anything around, so kind of to protect the neighborhood. But Ken and his wife were looking for the home, which we had no interest in. So that was when Rhonda sold all 3 parcels to them, and we kind of worked out a deal where we were hoping to buy the 11 acres.
Well, through the process, it was a lot of money. Through this process, you have.
No, go ahead.
Through the process, I guess $500,000 is a lot of money to us. I think it is to all you guys. And these guys helped us out by squaring that off. We have it all surveyed, it's all platted. I mean, access to it, I believe we're all okay, but that knocked our price down to make it affordable for me and Dawn to buy them 3 parcels, and we'll keep that all to the west, if you want to point that out.
Yours?
Yeah.
I got a pointer.
Yeah, he's got that red.
So,
Can you guys click on this parcel?
Yeah, that's.
There's a public right-of-way that shows going through here.
Yes.
But we want to see if it goes through this parcel. Everybody's seemingly talking about access, but if there is a right-of-way.
Right. Our access actually was intended to come off of Raspberry Lane, where we have the existing access. So we have to have an easement on this road through Riken's property.
Just explain it. Do you want to go back to that?
I do, because we have a state restriction on when you
Answer his
plat a
question
lot, it has
first.
to have
The
access
answer
to a
is
public
no.
right-of-way.
No, I don't.
So,
No.
along the bottom here, at least on this plat, it shows a right-of-way, a dedicated right-of-way along the bottom, and I'm curious if that right-of-way continues through that parcel.
That's as far as it goes.
I don't know that it would
Just
go.
goes through the parcel and not.
it ends right at the back of that. That house has a shed to the east, and it ends right at that shed, and then there's a solid fence line all the way down.
That's Doug and Peggy Jones that live up there. We sent out 40 letters to all the neighbors, and I guess, did you guys hear that? We sent out 40 letters, and I don't think we have any conflict that I'm aware of.
11-acre parcel that we would have would need an easement from Rikens from this stretch right here. So Raspberry Lane ends right there, and so we currently have an easement up to here where our property starts.
If you platted those 2 together, you would be over 20 acres and you would have your access.
We do already, I spoke with Mark Riken, he said, no problem, we'll give you an easement. And it's my understanding also that if for some reason that fell through, since we own the adjacent, we can grant ourselves easement from that as well if we ever had it. So there's 2 options there.
Yeah, you could just grant yourself
And I don't know enough about this easement stuff you guys do, and which is fine, that's what you do. I guess I have easement to any of it from where our driveway is. Does that make sense?
Well, it's an easement for you, but it's not an easement for the future.
Right.
And we're thinking about the future.
Right, so you live on
If you
like
grant
track
an easement to
1B, your
that
driveway's coming in
property,
like
that
track
hold on,
land.
hold on.
1B, then, let's just say something happened and track C got sold off, how do they get in there? Or
Well-
track B, how do they get in there?
If this is already parceled separate, it already is going to have an easement, right? Regardless if he owns all the property.
already has
This could be
access.
sold today. It's already parceled separate. So there's obviously an easement somewhere to this property.
Access.
Or access, I'm sorry.
No, there's no, I don't see any.
So you're just saying, I thought it had to be parceled separately.
Possible to be
You have to
landlocked.
make one.
Oh.
To sell it, you should.
Legally,
Well, they already
to plat any
sold
piece
it.
of property, it has to have access to it.
A title search on it and they find out it doesn't have an easement, I mean, that should be good.
Well, it sold in the last 9
But it
months,
doesn't
so
show
it
that
must
goes
have.
through here.
And that, right.
The property
That's, I think
sold.
what her point is
Yeah, I
as it sits, there's no highway access today on the larger one.
I really think you have
There's
an
no highway
easement.
access,
Written
and that
easement,
property
right?
sold within the last year.
I think you have a written
So
easement.
there's, somebody's got an easement to get to that.
The problem
One of
is
those
the
properties.
east half of it, if the
Right.
if the platted right-of-way continued through that small lot on the bottom, it would legally have access
Right.
to a public right.
Right.
There's only just a few rules about platting property, and one is you have to have access.
Right. And I think that if this were split, the west half would have access.
West half would have access
The
anyway.
east half would,
Right.
is what we would need to,
Right.
to determine.
And if she gives herself an easement,
I think she can probably give herself an easement.
right.
And Mark said no problem, I just needed to
Yeah.
get this
Or
Yep.
done
Just
first.
get that put in writing and.
But it has to be, yeah, it has to be done.
It has to be recorded,
Oh,
Sure.
sure, yeah.
you know, so those were our concerns
And,
about that. Any other concerns about this?
We don't, we just bought this property to retire on. We love it. We love our neighbors, but we do like our space too, which is, you can see we have plenty of space. But planning on selling in the future, no, or building a place.
What happens when you're making plans?
What's
Well,
that?
what-
Think about the inevitable.
Yeah, I think,
Yes.
I've heard people, especially the sellers, when they sold this, really started talking about like as if it was a developable property. And you had mentioned out there, there's literally nowhere you could actually put a home. So I don't know, I mean, that's not how we view it.
This-
It's just tree stands and ravines. So I don't know, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I don't know, I haven't visioned where you would put something.
This- this-
$500,000 is a lot, but that would cost $1 million to even put something like that up, to start.
This is in an agricultural zone though too, where there are 20-acre minimums, and we've got that right now.
Right, that's what I don't know.
One
Well, you
person
don't
should
at our
own it.
house. At ours, we're at
No,
10 acres.
Yep, I'm not adding yours though. He won't have that if he subdivides this, so it needs to be maintained with one owner. It either needs to be maintained with you or Mueller, the way I see it.
The whole thing?
The big parcel for sure. I mean, I don't see how you split that. It's a 20-acre parcel, you're taking it down to 10 and 12, or 11 and 12. I mean, when we go right to our ag district, the first thing is in the intent. Agricultural district is to protect agricultural lands and lands consisting of natural growth from incompatible uses. And it goes on to say that it's to limit residential, commercial, and industrial development in those areas.
So what would be different, what's changed in the law since 2013 when 10 acres was pulled off of the 160?
I think what really, I would have to go back and look, but my guess is Rikens owned the house, they owned all the land around it, and then when they built the house,
It was
Well,
parceled off, it was
it was-
all.
and I have no
They
idea on
had-
that, I can't comment on that.
Well,
but-
I can because we had to delay our closing for them to come to this board to get the 10-acre variance because it was never parceled separately. It was all part of the 160.
I don't know that it was or wasn't, but I know that we've
It
got
wasn't.
20 acre minimums in an agricultural district.
Okay.
If she puts her two pieces together, she'll have 20. She'll have
Yeah, that's-
21.
Mueller won't.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, but
It's
we're
right,
still being the
it's
same
20
thing.
acres.
We got
Just
one
a flip-flop.
20-acre lot and we got 110, so, you know, it's like, it's a.
And that's why they're asking for the variance in the first place.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, we'll be right on.
I mean, we'll be cleaning up one and making a small.
So then you're getting rid of the measurements and the pins, and you're gonna have one new legal description, you're gonna replat
We're not
that
requesting
property?
that. We're not requesting that.
No,
to-
but maybe you should, so that you've got 20 acres.
I understand that. I guess the biggest reason we weren't really looking at doing that is my understanding with a new legal description. We have a mortgage on our property, so we'd have to go back to the bank. And we bought in 2013.
That's why you were allowed the variance, it's because when the
Bank
bank requires it, we will
wanted
allow that. That's why.
Well, we were trying to buy it
But
by
that's not a
10, 12.
hardship. That's not a hardship.
No, I'm just telling you why
No, it's
we,
not. There's
didn't-
not
we don't-
one bank in this town that can't finance that property the way it sits. It's not a hardship.
we don't intend on financing the property that we've trying to purchase. I'm just saying that I don't want to have to refinance our existing mortgage and potentially incur the higher interest rate that's, jumped 60, 70 basis points since 2013. So I'd like to avoid that. That's why we were just trying to keep them separate.
Well, it doesn't appear to me these lot sizes are excessively small. 20 acres hasn't proven to be a size that pretty much any planning commission or county commission in Yankton could really get behind. 11 and 12 plus acres are not small lots. There's been dozens, if not hundreds, of variances produced that were this size and smaller in an agricultural district.
We've done a lot of under 2 acres.
Because of bank restrictions. You might be able to get a loan from a local bank, but to sell it on the secondary market, they want
And
5 acres
that
or
should
less.
not matter, but that is not,
Well, it is if
our,
you have
that's
to
not
pay
our
the
problem.
mortgage.
That's not our problem here. That's not what we have to decide.
Well, this is a hardship
If the borrower
for normal
qualifies
people.
for credit,
Yes.
there's no
It is
hardship.
a hardship for normal people.
That's not correct.
Yes, it is.
Well, I think back what I said originally, I think one of the biggest issues on this is we make lot 2, tract B, as a separate plotted lot that doesn't have access. That's like, to me, that's like the biggest thing.
No, are you talking about the one we would be purchasing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that would come off of that, so this is the public right-of-way.
Right, but let's say that where you currently live and it goes down Raspberry Lane, what happens if you sell that house and then lot 2, tract B gets sold to somebody else? How do they get in there?
Well, Mark's intended access wouldn't actually touch our property. It'd be right where you see the word Raspberry. So, I mean, this is owned by him, and so.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, this map says there's no access to lot 2, tract B, even if it's 11 acres. So let's say something happens to you two, and then the estate gets separated out. So they sell the Riken Edition lot, and then lot 2, tract B gets bought by somebody else. How do they get in there?
So just make it contingent upon the easement from Rikens.
Yeah, I'm still not following.
And then, because he said he'd give me one. He said, no problem, have the lawyer write it up. The only reason we hadn't done it yet was we had to get the actual plat to then put the easement on the plat. So we got the plat, now we're getting the plat approved to get the easement put on the plat, is my understanding.
And actually, I get what you're saying there, and in fact, like, if we did ever sell our house, we could come back and access this through Riken's easement off of Raspberry Lane without touching the property we
Right, but
sold.
right now, there's nothing here that says there's an easement.
Well,
Would this
we
be
can't,
handled-
you can make that contingent, but we couldn't do that until we got this approved. This is the step 1, that's step 2.
Would that be would we handle that during this variance, or would that be handled when we
Well, to me,
approve the
that's a
plat?
big thing on the variance. 'cause
Right,
it's
but
like,
when
how
we-
do you get there?
When we approve the plat, that would be,
So we just
a
did
requirement
one
on that,
Highway
I would
52,
think.
Riken up on the hill, and there was projected plat with the easement gone on it. We just did that the 26th of March.
But that was for the plat, that was to approve the plat, not
Right,
to.
But it also had projected easement and driveways. It came up to the middle of the lot and then,
What I'm saying is if this were to be approved tonight, a second step would be to approve the plat at a later time. And then that would be the requirement of the board at that time to review that plat and make sure that it has proper access.
I think what Joe is saying is we can take action on the variance without taking action on the plat. Before we take action on the plat, we need access to a public right-of-way.
Right.
And we want that too. We would not actually, we wouldn't want to like tie it in and give ourselves access. I think it's better to have it the same access that Rikens gave us, get a separate easement completely. We don't necessarily want them have to give ourselves an easement.
The variance to create the plat, we can act upon. The plat itself, I don't think we can act upon.
Right. Right.
You know, unless we approve it contingent of that showing up before it goes to the Board of Adjustment.
That's what I would say, I
But
guess.
that would be up to the rest of the board.
I like how you guys work through this stuff.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, the public part of the, you guys can sit down. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your time
Thank you.
and patience. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak on this issue, in favor of this issue? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak against this proposed change? Okay. Hearing none, I would invite a motion from the board or further discussion if necessary. It's my
What do you got, Brian?
recommendation that maybe we want to just address.
Brian had something he wanted to input.
Oh, sure.
My contacts are not behaving tonight. There's a moderate density south on 81, just north of the rural transitional. What does that take in? I can't tell how far north that goes or how close it goes to this property. Anyone see? It might be that Carmen Schramm in that area. Is it south of Lesterville
Those
Road?
houses on the west of,
West of 81. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
5 houses in a row next to the fireworks stand.
How many houses are?
On the west or the east, because there's.
Four?
Because there's some right to the south of this
north?
property too.
That's true.
There's a dwelling down there by where the old raspberry patch was.
You don't know, west side or the east side? East side?
So how many houses are south of Kent, you're saying?
I'm just wondering if that'd be something you could consider,
Well, and
rezoning that property to,
that may extend to the, because there's those 4 houses on the west side, but then there's houses just to the south of you. There's 2 or 3 other houses just south of you on those adjoining lots. That may be.
Yeah, Wolfer's house.
but in the same breath, you don't want a lot of houses, but by doing that, it depends who controls the land too. You could actually potentially get a lower lot size, but you open yourselves up to future development.
What if we did a
Pick
covenant?
your poison.
We wouldn't necessarily want that, I mean, but that's the only way we're gonna be able to split it, go along with it, but.
Well, the best zoning is owning the property. I mean, that's the best, that's the ultimate zoning, is owning it. But you can't own everything either, but I'm just saying if you, other than that, it just, that 20 acres, you all know it's the 20 acre unless, I just didn't know how close that,
it's just on the other side of the Highway 81 in Section 12 of Central Township. And this is,
So that's these 4 houses right here. Dan,
Next to the
Yep.
fireworks.
that's these 4,
Yep.
next to the fireworks.
oh, okay. Yep, I got it. All right, I see. Section.
I would be surprised if you'd want to rezone it, because from the uses you're talking about, it limits some of the things you can do. We had one right before you where we're talking about sizes of outbuildings and all those kind of things, and then when you start putting residential, whatever density you decide to put on there, you'd be into all that scenario too, so.
the only other option would be a PUD. If if you looked at
I think
something
that,
like
to
that.
me, the best scenario for him is to clear up the access problem. You know, like I say, I think the board can take action on the variance. You know, I'm unwilling to really take much of any action on our plat because it doesn't have access to a public right of way. And there's only just a couple really set in stone things that we have to deal with a plat, and public access is like one of the main ones. The state does not want us creating properties without public access, no matter what size they are.
Can you put the zoning, okay,
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that close on the east side or west side of the road, sitting just north of them.
So,
It's
yeah, rural
zoned.
transitional is the properties in blue, just right there. I mean, maybe that is a better use for the land as a rural transitional.
Still 20 acre.
Is it still?
Yeah, they still.
Right, but you can put in the findings of fact that it's adjacent to a rural transitional area.
But then you have housing right to the,
Well, one of the things about this piece of property, I mean, it's got some very 60-degree verticals to the ravine. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like
topography.
you're gonna, run a combine down it and plant corn. But, that's one of the considerations about the whole property is the topography of it.
Right. I mean, I drove by, look at that, and you couldn't run cattle on it. You could run billy goats maybe on that.
And then you gotta fence them in.
Yeah. And I get, if this was, we kind of talked about it at a previous one, but if we were taking this off of 160 or 80 acres, I think it'd be different, but we're not removing any more acres from ag production. We're just we're trading from one neighbor to the other, essentially. No matter how we dice it, we don't have two people with 20-acre plats there.
Right. It's actually working towards compliance, and that they own the adjacent property.
Go through the right process.
You have to do the process.
Yep.
I will say regarding the access, and I was taking notes and paying attention, I did speak with the attorney about that. Well, I said, I want you to look at the access and address that issue before tonight or something, because that may come up. So he's aware of it and so forth. So he just said that may come up with the board as far as access. And that's what I said. He was looking. I said I wouldn't waste my time going to DOT because that's it's impossible to handle the road. But and I talked to John Grant too. So so they're both aware. So they're aware of the access issue on both sides, the legal and the surveying side.
I'm going to be asking John Brandt how he expected a public access to this piece of property. Because he knows better than this.
Well, as he said, you can cross from those properties right now. And then we get in a philosophical argument. If you know them, then you know how it went. So
I thought maybe it went through that lower parcel. Like I say, there's a 33-foot dedicated right away on the south edge of it. And if it continued through that other parcel, we'd be.
that's that building's right there. There's that separate lot sitting there right in it. So
Like we don't have buildings on right of ways, too. So,
unfortunately, that right of way for some reason dead ends like what it should. Should dead end on the east end, not the west end.
Could I still comment here?
You have to come up.
Some public comment closed.
Yep.
I'm Darrell Nelson. John keeps bringing up this 33-foot public right-of-way there on the south side of that. I've lived out there all my life, and I've never been aware that that's there. That would be the half-mile line, not the 1 mile line. And I think somebody better research that before you count on that. My father used to be a partner in that property, and I've never been aware that there was a public right-of-way there. And if you would be pretty much wiping out, I believe it's the Jones property, is that correct? Because his house is about that far from the right-of-way. So
My guess is this plat close enough to be an ETJ plat, or is it not?
No.
So then John probably just put this on there because it is.
it's the half-mile line,
right?
yes.
But if that had been done through that lot, whether that is actually physically there or not, it meets the legal access that we have to
Yeah,
have.
yeah, whether that's
It's-
illegal access or not, I
It
don't know.
doesn't matter if it's just grass, it's
Yeah.
the legal aspect of it that
Mhm.
we have.
Yeah, yeah, I
have to
understand how
meet.
the easements go, but just
Because
be
they're
aware of
not-
that.
They're not looking for a physical access right now, we're looking for a
Mhm.
legal access to allow them to have a freestanding piece. But I know what you're saying, there's not a road there and hasn't been and not
And
gonna
I
be.
don't think the
but-
township would be interested in building one there either.
No.
so.
No, I don't think so. All right, thank you. Okay, so are we looking for a motion on the first part of this, which would be the variance?
There's two.
Right. But we need to do the variance first.
I know, there's
Well,
two
there's two
variances.
variances.
Two
Because we
variances,
end up with
right,
two
two variances.
lots.
Eric, are you still concerned about what you read earlier, about the
Yeah, I am.
intent? Okay.
Yeah,
that's
it's agricultural zone district.
But this is already platted out.
Did
It's
you
not taking away any more land from ag. It's already platted.
And did you see the letter that was submitted within the packet, the reason for request? It says the variance is requested because we have sold a portion of this lot, proposed lot 2 of tract B to a neighbor. The lot will be used for agriculture and as a hunting. Only 2.7 acres of the 11 of the proposed lot 2 of tract B is tillable. Currently 1.62 acres used for planting corn. After it's sold, the intent of the buyers to plant the remainder of the tillable land.
So we feel that the 20 acre, again, bear with me here as I get familiar, but is the 20 acre minimum, was that the intention of that to just solely preserve agricultural property? Or also, as it says here, to limit residential, commercial, industrial development in areas where they're not suited? Because my issue with this, and it's not so much what they want to do, that's fine, but if the intent is that if you don't combine these lots, they're two separate lots. You know, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, somebody else eventually is going to own these lots. And they could be separate lots. There could be two houses there. There could be whatever use is allowed at the time. There could be, so everything just keeps getting smaller and smaller. And you can say, well, it's on the edge of the rural transitional, or it's on the edge of everything, but it's still the beginning of something else. It's the end of one thing, but the beginning of another. So if you keep extending this line out farther and farther and farther, where does it stop? So I'm just trying to get a feel here. This is my first meeting, so I'm just trying to get a feel for what some of the intentions are, what the thoughts are. Because going forward, we talk about precedent, that's all we've talked about so far. A lot of this stuff is precedent, and variances is what we gotta do, what we gotta change. But here we're taking a conforming lot. For whatever reason, it's a conforming parcel, and making it non-conforming, just blatantly in front, right? 20 acre minimum, it's 22 acre lot, or what, and we're gonna split it in half and make it two non-conforming lots. That, to me, if you wanna combine them with your other property, I know, I understand, I heard the financial issues with that.
I think it says right up at the top, it says section 501 intent. So, I mean, you can read that for yourself. And
Well, I've read it several times, so that's why I'm just making sure.
You're asking what's the intent of it,
Yeah.
that's what it is right there in black and white.
Yeah. You know, that's my thing is if you want to do this, fine, but I really think they should be combined with whoever's gonna own them. And so that you have two lots that would be, you have another two conforming lots, okay? So you would take one conforming lot, divide it, but then you would add, if you added each part of that to the other ones, then you would have two conforming lots, if I understand that correctly. I'm not sure, you would both have 20 acres if you combined after the fact?
If everything was combined, I think we still would have a 20 and a non-conforming.
Okay.
Because I don't think the existing,
I think they're only, what, 4? It'd be under.
The one to the west.
Barely, yeah.
the two to the west plus the
western part.
Western part still wouldn't give us 20 acres.
Oh, I thought he said it would.
But the east half and the existing would give you 21, but the west, if it ended up in two plats at the end of the day, the east one would be 21 and the west one still would not be conforming. It would be 20.
Okay, yeah, I don't have it's not on here, the acreage.
Yeah, and that's.
I guess that's just my concern, just reading it from a first initial look at this, it just doesn't.
And I think part of it too, I mean, absolutely, it's limit housing development. I can tell you there's no you're not getting a house on that.
That's what they said at the lake 35, 50 years ago too. I mean, think about it.
Well, and that's,
I mean,
you
even
could
look at
build
California.
anywhere you wanted it for the right
With the right
dollars,
amount of
but-
money.
The right amount of money, that's right.
It is too. I mean, it's
But-
amazing what they do actually. But that's what worries me. You can do anything, any place, if you have enough money. And this is one of those places, I think.
Well, I think the fact that they own the adjacent property on both sides, and in the respect that the lot that's 11 acres, putting the lot next to it, it's moving closer to compliance. Whether it's physically replatted to be a 20-acre lot, at least we have the same owner adjacent. If they come back to us next month with a platted easement for access to that piece, perhaps we could do a continuance on the plat. But I don't see that they have written here that they don't intend to put a house on it. It would be not cost effective to put a house on it. That is not their intention. It is not suitable for agriculture. So I don't see the harm. I don't see the harm in it. It's an 11-acre lot. We're not talking about putting in a housing development with little half-acre lots all over that thing.
To me, this
You
is
know.
similar to the accessory structure size, I guess. And maybe
Each
somebody who
situation
is,
is different.
well, maybe someone else who's involved closer can shed light on. But to me, the intent of this ordinance, or what it should read, is that you can't build a house on less than 20 acres. Not you can't sell 20. You can't plat off and sell for some other use.
But that's not what it says right now.
Right. But I'm just thinking down the road for further discussion, maybe if that's how it should read or not, I don't know. I have a hard time telling someone they can't sell 10 acres to somebody, I guess.
They knew it when they bought it.
Agreed. And that's what I mean for future discussion or whatnot. Should that ordinance read differently or not? I don't know. I think it's something we need to discuss later on.
I think if the ordinance is to keep farmers on the land, you know, you inherit a farm from your family in tough times like farmers are facing right now. If a farmer needs to sell 10 acres to continue his operation, I don't see an issue with that either. He knew when he inherited it that he couldn't do it. That doesn't make any sense.
I don't want to get too far off in the weeds, but I keep hearing farmers, I live on a small acreage too, but I keep hearing farmers that don't want small acreages because all that does is create more people that are going to complain about their farming operation. So I hear it both ways, so so I just go back to right now, this ordinance says 20-acre minimum. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's my trouble with the whole thing, I guess. I'm just trying to get past that. I'm not, no ill will against anybody who wants to do anything, but I wish it would combine your lot and make a conforming lot if you could. I wish that's what I would prefer, yeah.
They mentioned the financial
I heard
part
that,
of it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it is the way it is.
And they knew that before they bought it. If they financed it, when they bought it, they knew they had to sell it to afford it. That was a decision they made. This is a self-inflicted hardship then.
Still waiting for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve based on section 1807.
I'll second that motion.
I think the motion should include the covenant that was discussed with Marvin Melhoff, where it wouldn't be subdivided into further tracts.
That was on the last application. I don't think there was a.
It's applicable to this though too.
It was on a residence.
He's asking to make that a condition
That it
of
will
the
be.
motion.
I'm going to say.
That's not his
I'm going to say
motion.
no for my second. That was a little different situation. That was a second residence on a single property that we didn't want to go in and split around. This is already split into what it is. This is already a fully existing plat, will be a fully existing platted piece. The other one was not a platted piece around a second residence. That's a totally different situation as far as I'm concerned.
But you're splitting it again, so it's very similar.
You're not putting a second residence on the piece.
What, you may though.
If I understand though.
You won't stop that without this. I mean, they're saying they won't do it. If you're gonna vote on it, you're gonna vote yes on it, put the condition on it.
Saying that.
I'm saying no condition. I'm not putting that condition on. Not
I don't
interested
think
in
you
it at
can
all.
tie a person's hands like that. If they wanted to subdivide those lots, that they have to come before this commission in the future
Right.
and replat it.
If you want to make a motion for that condition, you can make it and see where it goes.
Who had the second?
I did.
You did. You could have a development covenant or something concerned.
I think that gets rid of the concern. I mean, because that's what was talked about. That's what they said in their letter, that they want to use it for their personal hunting.
No, they have no intent to do it, but you need, you can't attach that to it?
Why not attach it? I mean, it's just enforcing what they
No, I'm
say they're
saying
gonna
if you're
do.
concerned about a house or something, you could say, ask them to put a covenant on there that they won't develop it.
Right.
End of story.
That, yeah.
You can't go by.
It's not a moot point unless you combine the two lots, though. Like, if you combine your lot with the lot that you're purchasing, and you combine your lot with the lot that you're gonna retain ownership in, then it's a moot point, because then it has to come back here. Otherwise, you just have a lot that you can do what you want to with.
I'm only saying because there's really nowhere for houses to go. Maybe a tiny house, and there's no like physical location for homes though. That's always like.
But there can be.
If you've ever been in the Black Hills, there's all kinds of houses built on the side.
Okay, that's not what's before us right now. We have a motion and a second. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Harper.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Hanson.
No.
Frame.
Yes.
Clemish.
Yes.
Eric.
No.
Schultz.
Yes.
Williams.
No.
Welch.
No.
Motion passed.
Yep. So recommended for.
And that is on the variances.
That's the two variances.
Right.
Both variances at once.
So, somebody want to make a motion for, the continuance for the plat?
For the plat.
Yeah, I'd make, well, do we want to go through it first and present it, or, because it's separate,
Okay. All
or
right.
just talk about what they're planning is?
Sure. Did you come forward to talk about the plat? I'm sorry to ask you up here again. But, one thing that you could ask for, not telling you that you have to do it, but if you had a continuance and then came back next month with the issue at hand, which is an easement, and had a written easement that is gonna go on that property, your chances of having it approved would be higher.
Okay. So we'll ask for a continuance on the plat.
Make a motion for continuance on the Mueller-Licknister plat till next meeting. When would that be? When is our next meeting?
I need a calendar.
Yeah, I don't have one.
There's one on this thing somewhere.
Well, I'll give the date, and then that way they don't have to resend the notices.
May 14th.
Make a motion for a continuance to the May 14 planning and zoning meeting.
And I think what we, you know, and maybe it's just me, but I think the way that we've always done this before, we will table it until the next meeting.
Table it?
And then we'll table it, and then you state the reason why you're tabling it, so that they can come back with a road easement on it. I'm not sure the continuance is the right word to use.
They've been using that lately.
See, I heard a
I don't know.
continuance, because then if we're continuing it at a public meeting and we set the date, then
Their letters and
Then-
everything still stand.
Yes, because we're saying if we table it, we wouldn't give a date on when it, and that's how I understand, and Brian, you want to help us
So
out?
my
on that?
understanding of it,
A tabling means you have to pick it up later at the same meeting, according to parliamentary procedure. So if you table it now, you'd have to address it at the end of this meeting. A continuance allows you to put it off until the next meeting.
does continuance, here's my question, does the continuance, the way continuance is used in other ones, the continuance doesn't allow a change in what's before you because you're continuing on with the item as presented?
Still the same discussion with the same concerns that you would carry on. It's same as if you had a public hearing and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you would continue that till the next meeting. And you just pick up where you left off and keep on going.
Correct, but we're asking for a change is the reason why.
If new information is presented, you can allow that to be presented.
It's all part of the same discussion.
Yeah.
It's still the same. The other thing I would consider here with this plat, and is there potential that you would approve the plat if you could tell them what you want? Because I don't know if it's, I mean, their legal counsel's aware, the surveyor's aware, if you give them access. And I'm not asking for this to give me power. I don't care one way or another. I'm saying for in service of the public, is there something you can tell them what you want? Where do you want access? Because access, it doesn't clearly say, statute does not clearly say you have to have access. That is not spelled out in statute. It says.
It is spelled out in state statute. I
Actually,
guarantee you. I'll bring it for you next month, guarantee you.
It says you have to provide access across land to a plat, to another parcel. You cannot create an island.
Cannot plat a piece of property without public access. It's clear, totally clear.
I would say I prefer their attorney and see what he has to say, but it's up to you.
Well, regardless, could we approve contingent upon
What are we
An
approving?
easement.
What are we approving though? I mean,
If it's not
Yeah.
on a,
It's
if it's
something-
not on a drawing, how do you know?
It's
where-
something
The only
you
thing
could
we're
do, but-
approving is a continuance to the next county
Yeah.
zoning meeting.
I wouldn't be
And we would
comfortable.
ask the applicant that they come with us with an easement to that property.
Are you okay with the easement that we've proposed off of Raspberry Lane with the same one we have to our property? Is that the desire of the
As long as it
commission?
goes back to a public right of way.
Yep. So,
and it
Yeah, we
is
don't really
dedicated
care where
to
it
that
is.
lot.
To that
It
part.
has
Yeah,
to
we
go
wanna
to
get it
that
right.
lot.
so it would go from right here
Just
at the
have to
corner
write it.
where Raspberry Lane ends, and then it would go down our existing road, but this is on Riken's property, and then right here at the corner, it would be drawn in to that
Yeah.
one. So it'd be right there.
Right, just
Is
as long as
Raspberry
it goes
Lane-
from the public road to the lot.
Raspberry Lane itself
To the
is just a
platted
private
lot.
driveway, or is it a public street?
It's a minimum maintenance.
It is a county road, but it's essentially,
We're the only ones that
Yeah.
maintain it.
If it's deeded to the public, then access to that would be okay. If it's a private driveway, then you have to go all the way back to where it accesses
no,
the
it's-
That's
highway.
why our current
that's
easement
right.
only goes
Yeah,
from the
our
corner.
current easement goes from here where Raspberry Lane ends, so, yep.
You need to get so that you have public access all the way to the highway.
So
Yeah, so it'll
would
have
we
to
be
go
able,
down.
just for the sake of everybody's time, I think it was our original understanding and intent, as long as we comply with that understanding for the easement, it'd be our plat be contingent upon that, so I mean, we would go get that exact easement. I guess I'm not sure what else would be, what we would be coming back next time for if we get exactly what you're
Just
asking.
to show
us.
that you do have the easement.
Okay, it doesn't
Okay.
have to get proved separate, or it doesn't, I guess I don't understand the process.
Okay, so the plat is a separate action
Yeah?
than the variance. We just granted the variance,
Mhm.
but we can't grant the plat as presented. So we're giving you the opportunity to get that easement so that next time you come, it's in order and it should be able to be approved. It's
Because you're
not a
saying there's no other way
guarantee
to show you that we've done that.
Well, no, we have to see
You
the,
have to
we
see
have to
the
see
evidence.
the-
It has to be
No, I
written
understand,
to
I
the
just,
plat.
I didn't know
Yeah.
if it was some, like,
Yeah.
before it was official with the county, it had to,
Okay, so do you understand?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, good.
I was
I'm
just
not-
thinking, if, I'm gonna go do exactly what
I'm
you
not,
said.
I'm not being facetious,
No,
I just
no.
wanna make sure that we're on the same page and everything's good.
We just
Yeah.
need this plat to show an easement
An
or
easement to the property.
Sure,
access.
Okay.
okay.
Access to the property.
Thanks.
You bet, all right.
Any more?
Nope,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we had a motion for continuance. And do we have a second for that?
Second.
Motion for continuance?
Flemish.
Uh-huh.
Joe.
He said Joe. They both kind of said it at the same time.
So who made the motion?
Clemish.
Flemish.
Joe,
Second.
second. Okay.
And then roll call vote for the voting on the continuance when you are ready.
All right. Flemish.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Welch.
Yep.
Harper.
Yes.
Healy.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Rain.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, next item on the agenda is the Hatchesky Petrick Enterprise, south of Lesterville, a variance on minimum lot size. We are asking for a variance from the 20-acre minimum lot size to a 3-acre lot size, a variance of 17 acres. Applicant recently sold a farm to the west and wishes to pass this parcel back to the original farm upon his passing and possibly earlier. No plans for development, only pasture when and if the water leaves. Do you want to say anything about this before the applicant comes in?
Basically, this is, if you can see on the map in black and white, it's the property in question. It's a little finger that falls between the section line and where the highway takes a curve coming in south of Lesterville. Mr. Hatchesky is buying it. He had owned the property to the west. He's bought this property from Petrix. It was supposed to be done years ago. The patriarch of the Petrix had passed away, so now he's dealing with the family to get it acquired. And once they get this, hang on to it, and then eventually put it back together because it was part of the original farm. It's generated lots of questions because we had to notify all of Lesterville. So
I was at the Lesterville town meeting last night. There's a lot of excitement about this.
So I returned a lot of phone calls to Lesterville people, and one of his friends didn't help him at all by starting a bunch of rumors. So I'll let Mr. Hatchesky answer any questions about having a little fun with him, I think. So.
My name is Terry Hatchesky, and back in, I think it was 46, they put this highway in, and they curved around this lake or what going into Lesterville, and it cut a slice off, and well, it happened quite a few years ago, and I think Winnie Kellison, Nis Kellison actually owned it. And I bought it from Nis Kellison. And, but all this time that Petrix owned that land and they never charged anything and they let us use the land. But I didn't think that was quite right and I sold it to David Wallach. And now I want to get that land back and give it to David. And it's just pasture land and it's kind of underwater right now. And nothing's going to be built there. So it's just going to be a pasture continuing, so.
Does the water ever leave?
Yeah, it does. Once in a while, yeah, it gets pretty dry there, but.
But if it's on a floodplain, they can't get a building permit for it.
Yeah.
Floodplain development permit.
Oceanfront property.
So I'm just trying to get it back to him.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah. And the Petrick, approached me right before he passed away. He says, "You give me $1 for that land," and I says, "Yeah." And then he passed away, and then it just kind of got forgotten about. So, and then now I'm working with his children.
Any other questions?
So the intention is to combine it with the other piece?
Yes.
So in the end, will there be 2 legal descriptions, or will there be one that includes that 3-acre parcel?
I think there'll be one.
We don't have a variance then, do we? Because we would have a parcel greater than 20 acres and.
No, this would be a 3-acre tract.
But if they
Well,
included all
it
in
is
the same
plotted
legal
out and
description, it would
everything.
be- If they would include it all in the same legal description, it would be,
It's not right
One.
now. Wallach will own the property in the west.
okay.
Mr. Hatchesy owned a 3-acre parcel, and Petrix owned a chunk to the east.
So he's actually gonna take title, and then the title, he's gonna transfer
He's
that
gonna
then
hang on to
to
it for a while.
Wallach.
And as I said in the cover sheet, until, no offense, but you said until, for a while.
Yeah.
Until you're passing, you're gonna put in your will, one
Yeah.
way or another. So he's gonna hold on to a 3-acre island in that for a little while, but then will it to Wallach's. Now, at that point, since it is a legal lot, I'd say down the road, it probably will fall into the same parcel ID at some point.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it'll say northwest quarter, or whatever, of such and such, and lot X, or whatever this is going to be called. Is that summarized, Terry? What you
Yeah.
have planned?
And you just don't want to give them this land right away?
No, not really.
No.
But-
That could be a loaded question.
Yeah.
Well,
What's
no.
your intention with it in the meantime? Why wouldn't you, if you're gonna give it, you just don't, you
Roll
just,
my nose.
Wait and see.
okay. Or something better.
Yeah.
3 bears at the bottom. Yeah.
And this is an existing farmstead, right? Or it's just
No.
pasture ground right now?
It's just underground
It's just
water.
pasture ground. Oh,
Just
there's
put-
water below.
It's this.
Water.
Okay, that's where it comes south.
Duck hunt, right? He's
Oh,
got duck
okay,
hunt
yeah.
right there.
There's been quite a few cars that go off that curve.
Oh, yeah, mini cars.
That's what I was gonna say, not that I know.
Bumper boats would be better for that.
Yeah, I've heard of many, I think my brother did.
So, so the piece on the west, I'm not, something's not jiving here for me. Piece on the west is, who owns the piece on the west? It's one big piece with that little sliver, and you're gonna divide it up? Or somebody's gonna divide it up? So, help me
The
out.
road follows the edge of it,
Understood.
not through the middle of it.
Right.
They'll
The
break
section.
this chunk off,
So
and
who-
eventually will it to the.
Wallach's owned to the west?
Who owns it now, to the west of the section line?
David Wallach, actually. I owned it. I sold it to David Wallach, and I'm gonna,
Okay,
So,
and this Petrick, and you bought this little sliver from Petrick.
yes.
you,
Well, it's
The
not a-
road
it's
divided
not a
that
piece- it's not a
section.
And that, and that goes with
So,
that land.
so I
too.
think Mr. Hatchesky owned
Just the 3
the
acres?
section to the west.
Yeah,
of
I'm
this.
trying to buy the 3 acres.
he did, but who owns it now? Who owns this little sliver now?
The sliver
What are we taking this
is
variance off of?
Petrick
What
on
piece of
the
ground?
east side of the highway.
He owns like a quarter in there or
So,
something.
it's just,
I
this is
think-
part of the parcel
What
on
are
the
we
east.
taking off of this? He owns
See if I can pose this.
So I'm trying to figure out what's coming off of it.
Like this is, so this is plotted
It's this little.
because it's a little.
Yeah, I know, I see that. I know it's in Pete, but
It's separate
it's-
plot.
This thing's more confusing than it's worth.
I understand the section line, right?
Everyone all wound up.
So right now, it's at one time went over to the section.
Well, it's no different than like we're.
In order to get
It
in.
already exists as a 3-acre
They
piece,
own little
otherwise you
slivers
would.
of cut, because they put the road where it makes sense, is what I understood.
They probably.
I mean, my assumption is you.
Well, I understand it's just the
So
line.
Brian, this is already
So I
plotted,
think
correct?
What he
No,
was saying, I think, is
we're
when-
presenting the
when-
plat after this variance.
See, what are we taking this little piece
Petrick
off
let
of?
him graze
80
this
acres,
for free.
60 acres?
I'll show you here in a second, hopefully.
505
506
It was still,
acres.
It was still
That's
owned
it.
over.
yeah,
Right here.
right.
That's my understanding.
Taking it
Yeah,
out
no,
of
I think so too, but I guess
76?
I'm not following all the way.
I'm not quite sure why, why Joe, they're not, why you just don't give it to them now unless you got no gratitude.
He's got a very good reason.
Oh, there is a, oh, okay, but you're just not disclosing it, but, so we gotta make our assumptions on that.
Nothing devious.
No, I'm sure not.
Why am I not picking this up? Where'd I go here?
Says the spider to the fly.
What's that?
Said the spider to the fly.
Yeah.
I typed in something wrong here.
We didn't have to send it to a lot of people.
I see it, old west.
2 pages.
This was the talk of the town.
Looks like the phone book.
Yeah. It was. No, it was, but it was over.
Okay, do we have any more questions for him before he sits down and I can ask for public input?
Okay, I didn't get an answer to that, no.
This is all that.
Well, it's a personal matter, he doesn't have to disclose that.
Looks right now.
Okay, that's why, that was my.
You think you want it all?
Yeah, gotcha.
What's this from?
That's somebody.
Separate piece, that's a separate piece.
See, that's how back at hospital.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Hatchesky, or can he sit down and relax now? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this proposed change? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak against this proposed change? Okay, hearing none, the public input part of this discussion is now closed. Do I have a motion or any more further discussion from the board?
That's what I was, I mean, because we're making, it's gotta come from somewhere.
It's not a buildable lot if it's in a floodplain.
It's less than a 20-acre parcel, though.
Yes, it is.
I would like to see it transferred directly to the next owner.
I can't get this to scroll, you damn thing.
Yep.
I went the wrong way here. This is not cooperating. Well,
He's trying to write something that was, happened a long time ago. I think that's an honorable thing. And I don't think that that happens a whole lot nowadays, so.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve a variance of 17 acres. With the finding of fact being section 1807, numbers 1 through 4. It's clear he's not building a house on the property.
Yeah, if you can put in there that it's on a floodplain and it's not a buildable lot. and his intention is to return it to its previous original owner.
At least to the abutting person.
Yep.
What did you say, John?
I said at least he intends to eventually return it to the abutting property owner.
Right, adjacent property.
What if we added that? Put a COP on it, could you? Or would you call it that, or?
I don't know how you, a condition maybe, but a condition.
Covenant or something, I don't know.
I think that'd be a very good way to do it.
I would say something to the effect of with the understanding that it will eventually go. Because I don't know.
think you can define what someone, who they sell the property to. So we understand what's happening here, but I don't think. you
With
can
the
put a
understanding that he plans to will it to the adjacent property owner.
That's not my motion, you're not doing any of that.
Okay,
My motion
that's fine.
stands the way it is.
Make your motion as you see fit. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote when you're ready.
Discussion.
We got a motion and a second.
Healy?
Healy, what's your vote? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure you heard it.
Yes.
Put you on the spot.
No pressure.
No.
Hanson?
No.
Frame?
Yes.
Flemish?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Schultz?
Yes.
Williams?
No.
Welch?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
Motion carries. Now, do we have a motion on the plat?
Is there?
Isn't there?
There's a plat on the back of,
On one of those things. Says plat approval. Oh, that's Terry Hatch's. Yeah.
Where we're at?
Yeah, that's where we are. We got a thing here for a plat approval.
not on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not. Just the variance.
Well, it's clear it's got road access.
Yeah, it does. It should feel property.
Oh, boy, I hit it.
Oh, it says it got road access? That was
There's a whole list, the whole list.
There it
You have
is.
to go through the phone book, let's do the phone book first,
I found
inspect.
There it is, it is.
Yeah, the plat's in here, but
The plat is on the back of one of the pages.
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
Just had a few contacts here.
I'll make a motion that we approve the plat.
I'll second that motion.
Didn't make it through the first meeting.
You said that wasn't gonna make it, yeah.
Done, no discussion? Okay. Let's go back here.
I suppose I should ask for public input. Does anybody want to come forward and have public input on this particular plat? For or against? Hearing none, public part of the meeting is now closed.
Harper?
Yes.
Healy?
Yes.
Hanson?
No.
Frame?
Yes.
Flemish?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Schultz?
Yes.
Williams?
No.
Welch?
Yes.
Motion carries. right.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is administrative discussions, establishing date for working meetings. For recycling farmsteads.
So I got a couple things. The ones in bold, these are not all for tonight. These are for discussion down the road. But two things, so they're mainly for consideration. Two things I have that are just building up more and more and more. Farmsteads. The ordinance basically says, and it was written with the intent, and I think some remember that farmsteads are intended to be, no matter their size, basically, and this is how it was written and intended when we started. If it's 6 acres, you come in, if you take the whole shelter belt and everything else, come in, zoning administrator has the authority to, at that point, no variance, go on and go, because you want to recycle those and not take virgin ground. It says now, and it's, I don't know how it's been interpreted, but if you read the ordinance, it basically says if there's 3 rocks in a row in a shelter belt or part of a shelter belt, and you get a permit for a house, zoning administrator grants it. So, but I understand they've been requiring variances for farmsteads, if I understand correctly, but the ordinance reads, a farmstead is anything with empirical evidence of once being a farmstead. And if a permit's asked for a house, the zoning administrator is supposed to give it to them. And I'm like, well, that's a little confusing.
What section are you in?
If you go, well, first go to the definition of farmstead, what that says, which is way looser than I have written else. It was way looser than I wanted to write at the time. And then you go into 515, probably.
Page 12 is the definition.
Yeah, I got it.
And I think it's 515.
I have
Page
4 or
47.
5 of them right now pending.
So you're talking about a farmstead that was 100 years ago?
The way their definition reads,
And then it's plowed over and then they're gonna reconstitute it?
well, if it looks like it was a farmstead.
Place
you look-
with empirical evidence of a previous farmstead, including at a, page 12. 's the
That's in
definition.
page 12, Lane, of your book.
Why don't you
Including
read
at
the
a
whole thing for
minimum
us, Joe?
foundation.
Read the whole thing for us, please.
Okay, page 12, farmstead, a place with empirical evidence of a previous farmstead, including at a minimum foundations, structures, or a tree belt. For the purposes of this ordinance, the zoning administrator or planning commission shall determine the eligibility of a farmstead as a building site as described within section 513, paragraph 3. The 513.3 says the zoning administrator may allow a smaller minimum lot requirement where a permit for a single-family home is requested on an existing farmstead site as defined. Essentially, if there's a existing acreage, you don't need a variance for the lot size.
From the planning commission, yeah.
That's how I read this.
And that's, I think, it was the intent when we wrote this, and everyone, was on board with that, because we didn't want virgin ground broken up for farms, and it took care of a lot of variances. If you want to build in the country, go buy a farmstead. And it was mainly intended for those people retiring from farming, whether someone passed away or they were just done. They wanted to keep the income producing ground and get rid of the maintenance issues. And the farmsteads were fetching a pretty price, and they could move to town or move wherever. And we see more and more of that. And if we didn't want that, then this other thing is, why go to a farmstead that may or may not have the infrastructure of water, electric, and things sitting there? And I was facetious, but literally, if you read that definition, it is, 5 or 6 rocks in a row and a segment of a shelter belt. Someone could make an argument that that's a farmstead. My other counties, I have everything from, it has to be a habitable house to at least evidence of a house. All the windows might be busted out, but that still works. This is very generous, and it might be something to look at. But if we're allowing that and yet are requiring variances for someone coming in with a farmstead, and I have multiples pending right now of that, I'd say at least 4. One off of 52 or property they want to, it's coming up for sale, and the guy across the street already, his daughter wants to move here from Omaha or something. Dad's across the road, haying operation. Daughter wants to move here. Hey, farmstead. I grew up on a farm. I want that farmstead. Another guy wants to buy the rest of the 35 acres for hunting. Won't be any more development, won't be changing anything. What do I need to do? I said, let me get back to you. I can't give you a definite answer. One up north in Odessa Township where son bought the land. Parents are going to buy the farmstead to give them the cash basically to finance the land. Do they need a variance? You'll be seeing that variance next month, and that's a doozy of a couple of variances because it's farm ground along the Jim River, and it's very interesting. 2, 3, there's just multiples of these situations going on out there, and I just need to know what should I be telling these people.
Are you saying in the past we've been requiring a variance, to your knowledge?
I'm not getting a straight answer.
That's what we have been doing. And usually when they come into us and it's like you just described, a family situation where they're buying the farm, homestead area, and like you said, it can be a good source of income for people that want to retire from farming, whether it is to buy a house and move somewhere else or pay off the farm or whatever reason. I think they should be allowed to do that. Now, if you're talking about 3 rocks in a row, that's a little bit different. When it comes to us for a variance, we can see the topography and we can see what's there. So, I mean, I guess if you wanted to put a minimum foundation and structures.
Well, I think
But that's your job. I can't rewrite the book.
For guidance on how they should handle it.
Oh, how to handle it.
I need to know, do they need a variance or don't they need a variance?
I say no, it's.
The way it's written now, I mean, we can.
Now, if it's questionable, if it was a farmstead.
I mean, I'm talking alive. I got another one coming in too, I mean, there's a house you could move in today. It's there. Change the name on the utilities or BY hookup or whatever else, BY, and move in today. And do you need it's 9 acres if you take the trees and all that's my insistence too, is the rules I've made in my other counties. You take everything. If it's inside that shelter belt. Now, if you want to make a deal with a farmer who wants to lease the bins or the machine shed or whatever else.
And we've done that too.
That's your deal. We don't need to know about that. But you will own all of it.
I don't see why that needs to come in front of us.
And this was written when we had, when we started, and I had people on the planning commission who wanted 160 acres, to build a house in the country.
Yeah, that's
so, well, I know, I'm just saying that's what, this was, very protective and 40 acres, so they were very protective of their ag ground. And this was a process that we came to allow those because they understand people are leaving the farm. So I'm looking for guidance when they come in. And I don't know I can't get a definite answer on what's been happening on a couple issues, this being one.
So if you had somebody that planted a shelter belt 20 years ago and it's established now, but there's never been a house there's no foundation.
Well, it says you need empirical evidence of a previous farmstead building. That's included in the definition of farmstead. So you can't just plant trees and say it's a farmstead. It has to have evidence that someone lived there.
And I am not
Say
here.
that in the definition.
At a minimum, it says foundation structures, or you can't just have a tree belt.
Well, it says you can just have a tree belt, but
It says at a minimum, foundations, structures, or a tree belt.
So that makes it sound like it's one of the 3.
But it also says empirical evidence of a previous farmstead.
And they're
I am
defining
not
by
here
those 3
to
things.
proliferate people moving into the country. That's not my question. I'm looking mainly for people where it's pain. I'm not going to make a judgment call unless it's painfully obvious you can basically move into this house. It might need paint, or a new roof, but I mean, it's, someone's moving out and someone's moving in, you know, within 6 months.
I think if this is, sorry, go ahead.
No, well, that's what all I was gonna say is the definition, it says the zoning administrator or planning commission shall determine, so
So
I
if
guess
you think
my
it's
thought
iffy,
was
you
if you
could give it
can't
to
decide,
us.
if you can't decide, or you're not comfortable, then come.
Right.
And that's what I was gonna
He has the
say.
administrative review process. He could always just come to us and say, I can't decide on this, you guys decide.
I think the 3 Rocks is a little sketchy. I think that would be one you'd want to throw.
Yeah, but you can see what I mean by that definition. That's how loose it is.
Part of this is Brian is graciously trying to keep the barrel stage together, and someone else is gonna come in there to fill that. They've already put a position description out on the street for it. So if you say that Brian can say, this is good enough, and then 2 weeks from now, the new person starts and they know no history about all this, I think you need to revert back to, that it comes to the planning commission until you have either the zoning ordinances updated or the new people that are intended to be a permanence. Brian's, you know, through everything is, so you gotta look at that and go, how, the new person gets started in 2 weeks and they know no history of any of this, how do they make the decision on this situation?
The same way
that
that
comes back to the planning commission, then I think you can have a discussion about it, like we've done with some stuff tonight, and I think it still moves forward. And I think that's right.
Well, I think they make the same determination the way that Brian has, and it says right in the ordinance, the zoning administrator may allow a smaller minimum lot requirement where a permit for a single-family home is requested on an existing farmstead. And that's why he was bringing it up, because he's being told that we've required variances in the past, and it didn't jive with him because the book doesn't say that. And I think, I'm not saying we can't clean up the definition of farmstead, but I think as written, if there's any question whether it's a farmstead or not, then it comes in front of the board. But regardless of whether Brian makes the determination or the board or the commission makes the determination, there's no reason for that to come in front of us for a variance. I think that's a waste of people's time.
I don't think they, like before, I don't think they came in front of us as a variance, but I think they did come in front of us as, the zoning administrator would say, is this or isn't this an old farmstead? Yeah, because.
And that makes, I think that's the.
And I don't think we saw very many of those. I think for the most part, when those did happen, they happened and they were platted and it was considered an existing farmstead and didn't have to come to a variance. We would see the plat.
Right.
But it just came to us as an existing farmstead, and we could approve or not approve the plat, whichever we decided to do. You know, usually you had a picture, you know, of something that let you kind of decide whether it was or was not an existing farmstead. The only time we really had a question, and you know, in 10 years, I think we had maybe one where it was the 3 Rock deal, you know, where it was mostly just trees, and you know, sometimes, especially with the aerial views, when you back out, you can get a better idea if it really was or wasn't a farmstead by how it's done. And you know, this, I was there when, you know, when we kind of did this, and this is something that, you know, things are no different now than they were then. You had 2 different sides that wanted 2 different things for the most part, but this is the one thing that both sides could really agree on, was that recycling these farmsteads was kind of a win-win. It was a win for people looking for a place to go out in the country. It was a win for people who were expanding their operation, buying property, had no use for the farmstead. You know, they got to go in and doze it all out and clear it out. They're better off to sell it, make some money. It makes the piece of ground they buy much more affordable. You know, it's a place where, as he said, some of it is, you know, retired people, they take the old farm and the kids get the old farm and they find a nearby farmstead or what used to be a farmstead down the road and move a modular on it, put a house on it, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of positives to this, you know, and I realize there's some negatives too in the details of it, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is a positive thing, recycling these farmsteads. You know, it's really good for all sides.
So I think what you're looking for right now is how do you proceed with the requests that are in process?
I've got one that's very they're hot to try. I mean, a lot of times they come in and basically say, and this is what's going to happen, I see it happening is, and I'm surprised it hasn't come to a head earlier, is they're a commodity, and they're a very hot commodity. And it's like, I want to know now, do I need this? Because I need to put an offer in and so forth. And the one off on 52, I mean, I'm getting hammered. The surveyor, do I need to do a plat? Do I need a surveyor certificate? What do I want to do? He wants an answer. They want to sell. You know, they want an answer. So as soon as I told him after tonight, I'll give him an idea. And I personally, I'm not going to say I want a plat, so it's very clear. I want the entire farmstead. Well, I don't care what he wants to access to get to his hunting ground. This is where I want it squared up with the section line and nice and neat, and that's it. He can get an easement from them to walk down to his deer stand, but I'm not going to chop something out, you know, out of the middle. So that one, I guess, really, you're as an advisory body, and I think I kind of jumped you on this a little bit, sorry, or ambushed you or whatever, and some of the commissioners as well. I don't know best probably to get a good recommendation, maybe pass on a recommendation to the county commission, and then we'll just issue a policy statement as a county commission and say, yes, interpret it this way, if you're all in agreement of this, you know, this issue. And then, you know, maybe digest that a little bit. And the other issue I have right now, it's fireworks season. And do we give conditional uses for fireworks?
Yeah.
In what districts?
I think that was an accepted use in Lakeside Commercial, if I remember right.
Commercial
We
and
issued
Lakeside
some.
Commercial.
Yeah.
Commercial.
Commercial.
That's
By Marks and,
That's commercial.
Well,
by Marks and out by the lake.
Out by the lake would be Lakeside Commercial, but
Yeah.
It's in Hague.
the one to the
too,
east,
according to
the one to the
this,
east by the truck
number
place is in commercial.
That was only, there's only two.
Yeah, you have the one out on 81.
One on 81.
Yeah, that are ones that set up.
here's one of my problems. Individual who's building a series of buildings out east of town, built one specifically for fireworks,
For sale or manufacture or what?
for
is it?
sale,
Okay.
only for sale.
Okay.
No manufacturer, no storage, nothing. In there for 10 days, in, out, end of story. Specifically for that. Basically was told, don't worry about it, you need a conditional use. We'll get this other rezoning done. There's no conditional use for fireworks sales in a commercial district.
There is not?
Nope.
So how's the one permitted by somebody, somewhere around Dakota Archery?
Probably grandfathered.
I know the one that's east in the truck place, that got permitted somehow.
Well, you could call it retail sales.
No.
So I don't want to have this conversation tomorrow with this individual. I know we regulated them. I know we wrote it in there. There is for ag, and I have a gentleman who wants to do something. He wants to go in 52, but I hear that's sacred ground. You can't put any there because there's an ordinance. Can't find an ordinance that you can't put any out there.
I thought that there was one that was
That is a 52
out
over
there
issue.
in
No, this
Lakeside
is
Commercial.
a fireworks ordinance.
Would that be under?
Is it in the book?
Yeah, there is one, and
Oh, I
then
had
the
that.
book, there is one more, there is one.
Okay, I had the auditor check and she didn't see anything in their passage. But, so you think they did conditional uses for the ones out east?
They were before us, yes. They came before the planning commission for sure. I guarantee that.
Well, commercial districts, page 74 and 75, and I guess conditional uses are on page 75 and to 76.
I can't say it wasn't done in error, but it was definitely done.
It must have been an amusement park.
Where's Lakeside Commercial?
Now, he has a stand, you know, portable tent or something
Yeah, tent, yeah.
that he wants to move, and was told he needs a conditional use to do that. I don't have a conditional use. Now, we'd have to do a classification of unlisted uses, which for those of you new or not familiar with it, I have in my when I wrote the ordinance, I have what I call the duck language. If it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it's a duck. And if we can find something in here and put them all together and make it sound like fireworks sales, then we'll make it fit. I do have another individual who wants to put one out by Archie's, or north at Archie's, you know, for fireworks sales. Now, he's in an ag. I believe it's, I'm assuming it's ag. I don't think we would rezone that corner. I gotta check. I made a phone, I was calling him on my way back from my doctor's appointment in Sioux Falls, so I was on the fly trying to take care of that one.
I think that corner is commercial.
It's on commercial.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on commercial.
Brian, page 76, number 14. It doesn't specifically say fireworks, but it does talk about.
That's what I was looking at.
Manufacturing, sale, yeah, I mean, like I said, if we do, I'd want your guidance on, you know, invoking the duck language. It's just not as simple as putting this in here, but it's
I know that we put a whole bunch of conditions on the building. It had to be fireproofed and firewalled and all that stuff. There was one put out,
Is it?
lakeside commercial area somewhere. I don't know if it was zone commercial or
Well,
lakeside
I'm not
commercial.
gonna question
but
that.
quite a while ago.
Then there's another one out there, Lakeside, probably in the last 5 years.
Well, there's a couple of them turned down out there.
Yeah, and there was one that was turned down, yes.
Well, there's no conditional uses at Lakeside.
It maybe was a little commercial piece in that
We
lakeside.
don't have fireworks in any of the
area.
places where we
I
have
think
fireworks.
where it was put.
But there's no in commercial either, see?
Lakeside or commercial.
No, it was fireworks, and my guess is, does anybody have a version of the old,
I got them all.
huh?
If you look
This
for
was
old zoning
updated in
ordinances, I got them
18.
all.
I'm thinking there's changes because this doesn't look familiar to me.
I
know
got them
it was in
all the
there.
way back.
Well, I know we wrote, I
Specifically
know,
said
yeah.
fireworks in the book I had.
In the old book, it was.
Yeah.
It was. I know
So it was
too.
taken out.
Don't you have, you have
Did
the
you
old
guys
one?
have a discussion?
I got all.
Did somebody just take it out, or was it voted on? You
You
can't just change.
were waiting for this moment.
Without a vote.
Well, you're right. Do you remember?
I know it said fireworks, I was on this board for 12 years.
What do you have there? Do you have 3? Which one do you look?
Temporary and then the 2003 one.
Go to 03 probably, because not much changed.
We had a big discussion about
Animal
this.
units went back and forth.
Oh, we had fireworks, it was a big discussion.
Oh, it was,
And it was said fireworks, and where it was permitted and what it took to get it permitted.
Yeah, they had to jump through a lot of hoops.
So, I mean, the old version's gotta have it in there somewhere, but which doesn't matter, because this was updated, so
Yeah,
we
so
go
it
by
doesn't-
what
it
we've got in
doesn't
front of us.
say,
But unless it was changed without being voted on.
It's possible. I don't see it.
I mean, I remember them I thought they just didn't want anything out at the lake. But I've written some.
This was before Lakeside, but before the Highway 52
Yeah.
development.
Well, I didn't do anything with that. I didn't participate in 52, but I still,
I mean, it was in the book before that.
So, Brian, what are you looking for guidance on?
well, fireworks in general and what, okay, so do we want them to be conditional uses? Or do you want them to call them retail sales and just let them be?
I think you want conditional use.
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty wild.
Conditional, you agree, I agree.
Okay, then,
Otherwise, they'll pop up like.
And then Article 10, like Eric pointed out, a manufactured distribution, sale, or storage of flammable, combustible, or hazardous material. I guess it doesn't say fireworks, but I think
But they're
fireworks
combustible.
Can you
meets
guys
that
dis-
definition he pointed out.
can you guys discuss that and combine a few of them to come up with firework sales for me? So, we'll play
Well, I'd
the,
like to know what happened to it. If
I don't find it in the,
I can't believe.
in the 03 ordinance.
I know I read something.
Then it's
I know
probably-
it's somewhere.
I don't recall we would have changed it. I don't know how we tried to get around it, but.
Is there a particular area, a zoned area you want guidance on? or
no, I'm just saying, if there's more things that look like firework sales, that are listed in conditional uses, let's group those together, and then we'll make a motion to say that fireworks sales are similar enough in nature to
They just get a.
50, oh wait, no, 10, sorry, 1007, blah, blah, blah. These numbers.
Engaged in the manufacture, retail, or storage of flammable or
We weren't
combustible
just flooded with them all every year.
Here's what was updated from 2008 till.
Because I don't want number 14 involved in the individual we're talking about necessarily.
Ordinance 16.
Yeah, you
was
don't want the
adopted.
manufacturer and stuff.
But he has no
Article
interest in that,
20
that's
was
okay.
amended.
Him, we have no problem with.
25 was amended. It's
Probably
wireless.
wouldn't be-
Excuse me.
26 was amended, that's wind.
I think the best case is we would just
17,
add
18,
fireworks
19,
to the
21,
number of
25.
conditional uses on here and add that to
18, 19.
the list.
Article 9 and 15 were amended.
Those wouldn't be anything with fireworks.
Article 14 was amended.
That's signs.
18, 19.
No, right here, we're saying for commercial district, under conditional uses,
6.
plan.
They were done, weren't they?
Fireworks.
If I remember
Just add that.
correctly.
If you're closed for a year, you lost your grandfather, yeah.
It could have,
He gave us,
would it have been in
he
that
wrote it to include, you know.
Highway
it up.
52 corridor?
Yeah, that's gotta be what this is all about. I wasn't on here tonight.
Because that was amended.
Yeah, but that's a separate ordinance, that wasn't amending any
Yeah,
of
but
this
I'm
thing. It
wondering
was
if they
adding.
didn't change this with it, cause
No, I was on the board at that time, and I don't think we did.
I don't think so, because I went through all of those changes,
I just swear to
and these
you. They
are,
know already.
We all got homework now.
that's what I'm wondering, in the 52 overlay, was there?
Maybe.
No,
Maybe.
no.
It could be.
We're gonna go through.
I don't remember.
No, just these first.
But I just could have sworn, you know.
So basically, I need to be able to look these individuals in the eye and say, yes, you need a conditional use permit. Yes, you have to go through the process. And yes, your 10-day window for selling, getting your inventory and whatever else is running very tight right now. And here's why you need a conditional use permit and that you're not retail sales. When it's specifically listed as a conditional use in an ag district by term.
Well, it says distribution, sale, or storage of flammable, combustible, or hazardous materials. Fireworks fall under that.
Yeah.
They're selling them, they're storing them, they're distributing them.
I am not debating, I agree with you. I
I'm
just,
saying, if you were looking for some, hang on your hat, I think you got it. In the commercial district, on page 76.
The closest I can come to what we probably did is section 11 for lakeside commercial is section 1109. It says, in order to ensure that the zoning ordinance will permit all similar uses in each district, the Board of Adjustment, upon its own initiative, upon a written application, shall determine whether or not specifically listed as permitted accessory or conditional use in a district shall be deemed permitted accessory or conditional use in one or more districts on the basis of similarity to uses specifically listed. We may have taken that and said fireworks stand listed in agriculture, and you can take that use and move that to commercial and lakeside commercial.
And there were already fireworks stands
Because-
grandfathered in there.
Because it already, that's where they already were. We didn't really only have one that was in, and I don't even think that's in agriculture, that's in rural transitional, that one out north,
On 81.
the one on 81 next to those 4 houses.
oh, the old South Dakota fireworks, that one?
Yeah, that's the one the same person owned that wants the one east of town.
Well, the language you just read to me is that's in every district, and that's what I just said, the duck language. If you can find something that's similar, like we're taking this manufacturer sale, whatever, flammable materials, we're gonna use that and group that together. I think we can do this. I just want, like I said, I want a good, strong argument when I say, yes, you need a permit.
That's as close a recollection close a recollection as I can have to how we required, because we required a conditional use.
I think that would make sense, say for section 1109 and say.
Our argument was if it required a conditional use in agriculture, it requires a conditional use in commercial.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're not, you wouldn't have.
That it's not just allowed, you know? It's not just open sales.
So commercial district is the only one we're gonna play around with. Ag already has it listed as a conditional use. So commercial district,
Because it's not in Lakeside Commercial either.
we don't wanna add it.
Got it.
We do, but we don't wanna see any more, do we? Well, supposedly there's an ordinance that bans any more from going out there, but I haven't, Zane says he found it or something, but I don't know if it was a standalone ordinance or part of the book.
It's got to be something in the Highway 52 corridor thing, because it isn't in here.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of that either.
It's not, I
Guess that's online.
haven't seen it in that corridor.
The ordinance is online.
I gave it,
That would have to be the Highway 52 stuff. I don't know any of that.
okay. Mm-mm. All right, fireworks stands.
You're saying that people believe they didn't need a conditional use, they could just start selling, or?
Well, they're asking if they,
Why did they come to you at this late date?
well, the one individual came to me and said he was told he needs a conditional use to operate in his new building. We opened the ordinance and read it, and no, fireworks is not listed as a conditional use in a commercial district. It's listed as a conditional use in an ag district. So why would he need a conditional use permit?
It's not listed permitted either.
But it's.
Is it?
But it's not listed.
Well, the word
So-
fireworks isn't there, but the definition.
But there's retail sales, and what's he, you know?
Of flammable and combustible materials. Yeah.
Right, which, and that was primarily written for, you know, propane farm and things like that. But,
Well, I think the issue.
well, I did write it.
I know, that's why I'm saying, you can't say it was written to that because you didn't write it.
I think the issue you'd run into.
I did write it, though.
If you ever had to defend that, what you're gonna have is you're gonna have somebody say, if you intended for it to be a conditional use, you would have listed it as fireworks, because it is listed as fireworks in agricultural zoning. So if you intended to do that, you would have carried that forward into commercial.
Well, that's
I mean,
a-
that's the risk you run.
Well, that's a very good argument, and that's why I want to have a very solid. I don't think I'm going to have problems with the primary individual I'm talking about. He will go through the steps and know how to do it. What coming after that, I don't know. As I said, I have another one looking up north at 8146. They've just reminded me that that is commercially zoned, so that will have to go through a conditional use process as well, via this manufacturer sale of flammable materials.
Number 14, I know.
But again, this is going to be this board's recommendation on this. We'll kick it to the county commission and let them wrestle with it to give me a formal opinion or policy. And then after that, I will give these people a definite answer.
You know, to follow his argument, which I think is right, it's also, you know, being that it is listed as a conditional use in agriculture, and it's not listed as any type of use in the others, you could simply tell him, if you follow the ordinance strictly, it's simply not allowed anywhere other than agriculture.
It's prohibited.
So if he says, well, you know, I can do it because it's listed here, you can say it's specifically not listed here, and that means it's specifically prohibited, you know?
I have no problem with that, with one exception. An individual built a building dedicated to this use, was told it's okay, no problem, we'll worry about it once we have the variances and all the other stuff done.
That's hearsay. How do you?
Who told him?
Is
it was
that in
okay?
writing somewhere? I mean, how do you prove that? I guess
Well,
I can say that too. I got
okay.
a building I'd like to sell fireworks out of because somebody told me it was okay. I mean, that doesn't mean anything.
You know, and I'll have to say, I live out there, and I don't know that I'm opposed to him selling fireworks in it, as long as he goes through the proper channels to do it. You know, I don't
So,
really care that much one way or the other.
what, I guess we'll take however you want to do it, take a motion and a recommendation on both these issues to the county commission so we can, I'm not intending to keep you here all night long. These are issues that I need to get some clarification on.
I think you gotta
There's
have-
many more, but.
You gotta have
the-
a review and a motion from us, and then take it to the county commission, and they'll do whatever they would like to do with it, but we can do a little bit of research for them, I guess I would say.
I think the argument, yeah, is section 1009, classification of unlisted uses, and say it's specifically not listed, therefore we need to
See if it fits.
go in front of the BOA for that.
Yeah, it's not listed, but the other places where it is listed, it's a conditional use, so the natural flow of things would be wherever we are gonna have it, it's gonna be a conditional use. Not just allowed, you know what I mean?
Well, at your own initiative, then after we get through this, you know, when we do a policy statement on farmsteads and discuss this at the county commission level, you know, we can, next week, correct? Is your next meeting? Yeah. And then we'll sit as a board of adjustment and make a decision on the classification of unlisted uses and put fireworks sales as a conditional use in a commercial district.
And when we're doing these changes, I don't think it would be tough to just add fireworks sales in as a conditional use in this when we're doing other.
When we do our final changes, yes. We'll make a note in your book and we'll certainly bring that up for discussion.
That
It
just
says
makes
everything
sense.
but fireworks in
does, yeah.
number 14 under section 1007 under commercial.
I might as well say fireworks.
It might as well say
We would have saved
fireworks.
30 minutes of time, so, yeah, I agree.
Plus the fuel and gas, you know, propane.
It says-
It does, it should say that if you want to do it.
Or storage.
Well, they always say the devil's in the details, and that's, you got to get these right.
Combustible and explosive too.
So these were on the agenda, these were on the published agenda. Do you want something from, in other words, do you need to take this to the county commission? Or do you want to wait till next month?
No, I need to know
You
as
need
soon,
something,
so I think
you need something from the board tonight to be able to take
just to
this
forward it
forward.
to the next meeting of the county commission to get a definite answer.
I think you could just take that section 14 and add at the end hazardous material or fireworks. How about that? Because it's.
I wouldn't do that because that's manufacturing.
Manufacturer, we don't want
It
that.
says distribution, sale, or storage. It doesn't
Or.
say only.
No, what we will do is I'll take it to them and they'll make a determination that fireworks sales is similar enough in nature to number 14 or what.
Or if they want a separate one and add it on the bottom.
No, they say that's an amendment. We can't do that.
I wouldn't say it's similar to 14. I would say it's a conditional use in an ag zone.
You'd rather have it as an ag zone.
Have it be a conditional use.
No, I'm saying you use that as the similarities. In an ag district, it's a conditional use is
So you'd rather
required.
use 1009 is what you're saying.
That's what I guess I would prefer. I would not put fireworks under 14.
Okay, whatever you
Oh,
want.
That
no, we have to. You got to stay in the same family. So we're trying to make fireworks fit into a commercial district. Why does it fit into a commercial district as a conditional use? So what's it similar to?
Okay, I
So
gotcha.
then you say that fireworks is similar to.
Unfortunately, just looking quickly, that's the only thing it's similar enough to in that area. If you jump to permanent use, you could probably, like I said, you could make it, oh, well, it's retail sales. Well, we don't want that, so we're gonna go back to conditional use and say, well, it is manufactured distribution of flammable materials. Okay, we call that fireworks. We think it sounds like fireworks.
Consider the flammability and the hazards is more than just retail sales. I mean, retail sales is pretty generic. If you have to do with the conditional use permit at number 14, that's specifically addressing known dangers. It is different than retail sales.
Well, it'll get us through now, and we'll clean it up, or whoever will clean it up when you guys go through this down the road. So just make a note in your books and add fireworks sales as a conditional use in a commercial district. As far as the farmsteads, whatever your feeling is, a motion or recommendation to the county commission, saying what you feel, if it's, should we interpret that as, you know, farmsteads do not need variances, provided they meet the requirements of, you know, taking the whole farmstead.
Well, I do not believe in the three rocks, we know that, I don't think that at all. The move in, move out.
I think the question right now is if it is deemed an existing farmstead, is it can they get a building permit or simply move in and move out?
Do they need a variance,
Or do they need a
basically?
variance?
So you just say, Zane, so if you say if it's a habitable,
Here's the problem that I have.
I don't think it even has to be a habitable thing. I think it has to be a legitimate farmstead, not 3 rocks or 3 trees in a row. If you can tell that there used to be a farm there, because sometimes they'll doze the building down, but there's still a barn and outbuildings there. Sometimes all that's left is a decrepit house with all the windows broken out of it.
Or an old barn.
Or an old barn.
And
You know,
Or an old well.
because somebody, they might, if the house is too far gone, they can't revamp the house. I don't think it needs to be a turnkey house. And they might want to doze that house out and build another house there. You know, but you're not taking land out of ag. It gives that farmer a chance to sell off the farmstead that he doesn't want to live there anymore. He needs to go into assisted living, or for whatever reason they want to move someplace else. And maybe the kids have an emotional attachment to it, and they want to build a house there.
I agree with that.
And that's even.
But that's even a discussion for down the road, I guess, in my opinion. What we need to determine is, according to the ordinance as it's written, if the farmstead meets the definition of a farmstead, either by the administrator or this board.
Sure.
Do they need a variance or not? And I have a hard time sending
it's
somebody,
necessary.
yeah, I have a hard time.
Exactly. You know, and like you
Based off
said,
the
if
way
it
it's
comes
written.
and it's iffy, then send it to us. Because it said the zoning administrator or
Well,
the
you know
planning
that,
board.
yeah, I mean, I think we have to follow the book and what it says now. And you
Yeah.
know that if suddenly we get bombarded with 1, 2, 3, 4, 20 of them, then we'll move fast and get that changed.
Cause I could name
You
you,
know
I
what I'm
could name
saying?
you 10
Well,
farmsteads in
well,
my
I
head.
understand that, but you.
That an
people
old
aren't
barn
clamoring
sits
to
there.
put it out
you know, you got 4 in every section,
Yeah.
right?
Well, no, some of them gone, but I mean, the silo, there's a silo,
Right.
there was the
Well-
farmstead.
But
Good.
there
It'd be
is, and
wonderful
that's
if a
a
person lived
discussion
there,
for
don't you
if
think?
we want
Yeah.
to change
I
the
do.
ordinance, not for how we want to handle it today.
Well, right now, the only pool I'm swimming in is pretty much move in right now, ready. The ones before me right now are
Well, I don't.
ready to
that
move
should-
in.
I don't think that
Well, the
should be a
book is
problem.
asking you to make a judgment on that.
No, so, you know, if one comes, we'll go from that, but I agree with Joe, I mean, we have to follow the book, and if you feel that's what the book says, we'll go by that, and hopefully, all we deal with right now are, you know, the easy, obvious ones, and if I have a count, you know, if someone starts pushing the limit, then we'll come before here and have to make our judgment and set our limits.
Right.
So just something of that opinion, that you know, recommend that variances are not, you know, applicable to farmsteads as defined by the ordinance. And then, we'll take it to recommend that to the county commission, they'll make their decision, and then we'll do the same here with these fireworks stands as our conditional uses, as, in accordance with 1009.
Did you need motions and?
I'd like something formal so that you guys can have something formal to act on when it hits your.
You're talking about just building a home at these farmsteads.
I'm talking about using the home and what's there. And when I say that, and how I've worked it in all my other counties is, you take everything.
Well, let's just be clear, they can't come in, find a farmstead, and put up a building of any kind except a house.
No, there's probably no room for anything else. If they came in, then they need
That's not an
a,
answer, yes or no?
well, can they come in and get a building permit?
Or
Sure.
anything without, if they don't, no, then.
No, they need a building permit if they're gonna build anything.
Hog building in there.
Not, well,
Judgment.
no. They're getting the farmstead, okay? Now, if the farmstead is big enough that they could put a hog barn on there, sure, but then they still have to get the process.
Just want to make sure we're all clear.
Yeah, there's no, I am not trying to circumvent anything here. No, anything's subject. If they want to add a she shed, then they're gonna get a building permit.
Well, it says a permit for a single-family home is
It
requested.
specifically says dwelling area, a single.
Anything.
Single-family home requested on.
They want an outhouse, they're gonna, well, no, outhouses are probably small enough that they're exempt, but
I don't think you get to put those on anymore, do you?
You can have a septic field, but no, it's not an opening for anything except for someone to move into the country, have a lot that's ready-made and not break up virgin ground and have to come here to get a variance.
Exactly what we want for our house.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll make a motion that no variance is required if the definition of a farmstead is met per section 513, paragraph 3, for minimum lot sizes in an ag district.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we
I'll
have a
second that.
But it still has to have discretionary.
You'd like language in there about the discretion of how we don't decide if it has empirical evidence of a farmstead? I would too.
I mean, that's
I
a
think that's a
judgment call on
separate
one
issue.
person.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Or if they're not comfortable, coming to the commission.
I would think if you had something in the motion about clear evidence that it meets the definition.
If we're not happy with the definition, we need to change it.
Yeah.
My motion as stated states that it must meet the definition.
It won't come to you. You've already taken it away and you've given it to the zoning administrator. You won't even see it.
We won't know it until somebody will be.
You won't even see it. There'll be 10 of them out there and you won't know.
That's why we have to change the book. We can't change.
Well, I don't know that you need to change the definition. You need to.
We have confidence in our zoning.
Well, I can swear on whatever you want to swear on, unless it's something they can move into, like
Yeah.
literally today, it's not getting by me.
As very little as possible comes before us.
So that's the definition.
That's what we tried 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. But minds change, don't they? People change.
But that's-
Situations.
You don't want
That's-
anything that everybody else didn't want.
That's the definition, but then you still fall under that minimum lot requirement of 20 acres.
No,
No,
You
not
release it.
according to
Where's that
section
excluded from
513.
that?
The
That's
zoning
what I'm-
administrator may
513,
allow a smaller
513.
minimum lot.
that's the intent of this. If it doesn't matter, as long as you take the entire farmstead.
Yeah, you can't sort out the grain
No,
bins or
you
anything.
take, you basically take the shelter belt, the shelter belt's yours and everything inside it. Now, if a bin sits outside, and I just saw one the other day, if someone built a bin outside the shelter belt, that makes it a little more difficult. Some of these new bins are being built out, out in the farm ground. But traditionally, you draw basically a U from the public road out, around, and back to the public road. You take all of that. It may be 6 acres, it may be 5 acres, it may be 12 acres. Every farmstead is a little bit bigger. That is exempt from a variance. You plat it that size, that's what you get, but everything else. And that's where I say, there's no platting out the house and an easement for the driveway, and the grain bins are going this way, and the machine shed's going this way. Now, if you want to negotiate with your neighbors to rent that stuff, great, but it stays one owner in that farmstead, that's it.
It's in 513, paragraph 3.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Vote when you're ready.
Why did I say we should have to vote? We should have said it's okay, just let it fly. Okay, and this was on the farmstead?
Yes.
Okay, so we have Harper,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Frang,
Yes.
Klimish,
Yes.
Koenig,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
All right,
Those weren't easy yeses.
I almost circled half your name. So, okay. Fireworks.
I ain't afraid to stand by myself.
No, I'm not either.
Okay, so do we want to have an additional meeting to discuss?
I think we're.
We need some kind of motion on the fireworks.
Does anybody remember what we kind of came?
I guess I'll make a motion that pursuant to section 1009, that we classify fireworks as a similar use to section 1007, manufacturing, distribution, sales of storable, combustible, or hazardous material. And we recommend that fireworks receive a conditional use permit.
Because it's a conditional use in agriculture? Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And I'd say due to concern about safety, health, and welfare of our citizens of our community.
All right, Hanson,
Yes.
Frang,
Yes.
Klimish,
Yes.
Koenig,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Healy.
Yes.
On the farmsteads, who made the motion in a second?
I made a motion.
Did you second that, Greg?
Yeah, good.
I might guess
Hanson.
fireworks one, we get that changed.
Thank you.
Want someone manufacturing fireworks.
Well, you understand, nobody can sell or manufacture fireworks without the fire marshal signing off and inspecting property for safety. I mean, it's not a,
It's a conditional.
there's a lot of other
I know.
hoops they have to jump through to sell fireworks.
We'll have somebody try it. We'll have somebody try it.
Yeah.
So
Go
although,
through any more of these tonight?
I think I'll get lynched if I propose that.
Just as,
Good progress.
It will. Just as a selfish question, what's the question about building permits on the campgrounds? The fact that they're making them get building permits for decks and sunshades and whatever
Yeah, I mean,
else.
the ordinance reads the owner has to get the building permit. Well, they're not the owner. The owner is the campground holder. So, and I just ran into Larson's Landing, and Doug Larson's now kind of re-engaging, he said, and he's gonna have them go through him and sign them. So he knows what they're doing. In the past, it's kind of been just the campground, or the camper guy getting these sunshades and decks and whatever else. So I don't know if they've been following their rules, or if I'm giving them a permit, are they violating the campground rule, and is it gonna come back on the county? So I'd like to know, I'm gonna look at that and see, maybe initiate that they need to get the owner of the campground to sign off. So I certainly don't want to give a permit for someone that's violating their own internal rules.
Yeah.
But,
Or let somebody get a permit on property they don't own.
yeah, and I don't know, everyone works at a little bit different. So this is just a sampling of issues I've come across within the ordinances. We've got a big one in subdivision I need to clarify, which is gonna be a long discussion. So would you all be interested in a work session to address these? I'm having one with the Drainage Commission, because the less I can get my hands untied, the more effective I can be, and the more efficient you all will be when we come to these meetings. So I don't know if it's something you want to think about, or throw out a date that might work for all of you.
Well, I think we have to have a work session, because there's more stuff than this to work on. You know, the whole process of this variance conditional use thing, we're gonna have to address somehow. You know, trying to hold our nose and give variances on things, you know, has been going on for too long, and we need to do something with this. Whether we're gonna change lot sizes, whether we're gonna say no oversized accessory structures, whether we're gonna move these to conditional uses instead of variances, somehow this has to get in line.
Well, you know, the one situation up there on the hill, the Lickness, whatever, I use a district called Ag Residential. That would have been perfect for that. Smaller lot sizes, but it's residential within an agricultural area, so you have a mixed use of those two. But that'd be down the road creating a mixed, you know, a different district. That, yes, you have farmers butting up against ag, but you don't promote residential, but you're inheriting what's there. And you might as well address it. You have residential butting up with agriculture. Let's figure out a way to abut it. No one's gonna come in there and farm that ground. And they say it, even the farmers in that area tell me the only thing you can run in there is billy goats
Yeah.
at best. But we don't want encroachment into agriculture, but if it's there, we can't keep dealing with it this way, because it just causes you all more heartache. But if we can deal with it in a way that just tight controls it and keeps it in check, then let's look at doing that.
Well, I think you can take the lot sizes and make lot sizes different than, if we're afraid to get rid of the crazy 20 acres, we can make lot sizes that are smaller a conditional use. And at least then you have more control, and you can actually use the ordinance as it's written to approve them, instead of using the variance process, which is not made to approve them, to approve them. If your problem is that you don't want anything less than 20 acres, that don't help you. If your problem is you don't want to approve less than 20 acres because the zoning book tells you you're not supposed to, moving all that stuff to a conditional use clears all that. And not just in the 20 acre. You can clear all that stuff in the residential because we have lot variances in the 5 acre, lot variances sometimes in the 1 acre. And all you'd have to do is make it a conditional use to have a lot size smaller than the allowed lot size in the district. And then it's tougher, you know, to get a conditional use. You can do a bunch of conditions and you have a whole bunch of stuff you have to meet. But it's not like the variance where you're just ignoring the ordinance.
You can regulate a little bit more.
Correct. You know, and you can do the same thing with the oversized buildings. You can take those oversized buildings and make them a conditional use.
Well,
Both the overall size and the sidewall.
Maybe just bump that up a little bit. I mean, we're running into that one just constantly.
But I'm just not sure if you bump it up 200 feet in all of them, that then we're not wanting another 200 feet.
Yeah, where are you gonna find the line? Then the next thing you know, someone wants it a little bit.
I think it does hold them down a little bit, having it.
You're never gonna make it big enough.
Yeah.
You're gonna go the guy who wants a 13-foot, a 20-foot boat, then he wants his combine, he wants to bring it home.
Yeah.
I mean, serious.
I have the 32 variances we've passed since 2009, and they keep getting bigger. What is the last one, was 500%?
Some of them,
2,000 to 12, you know, it's.
some of them it's a 1 acre lot and they want to go to 1,400
Some of
square.
them
And some of them
are
it's a
45
40 acre lot and
Yeah.
and we can't let them have a 1,200 square foot shed and they own 40 acres. You know, that's-
So we look at percentages and things like that, which are sometimes from an administrative perspective are very difficult to work with, but you need, you know, your maximum lot coverage or things like that. And if we work it out in a table format, so you're not there with a calculator and trying to calculate their acreage and then buildable area when it's in a ravine, and it gets a little more difficult on the administrative side. But all good points that we can talk about, you know, at another work session and stuff. But this is how we need to take real world issues, work those through, then make notes in the book, and then to tear into the book. Because you need to work that way. If you just work on theoretical stuff as you're working on the book, you're not going to get anywhere until you use real life
You
examples.
can have several changes come fairly quickly that are fairly simple. It's easy to see what's wrong because we've had the variances and stuff over and over and over again on the same stuff, you know.
Well, that's what needs to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a proven history there, so it needs to change. Obviously, it needs to change.
You know, if we didn't stop it, and we haven't stopped it through all these years, why are we gonna try and stop it now? We need to make the zoning so that it allows it. It doesn't have to just blatantly allow it. But if, you know, the other thing is, if you make this stuff a conditional use, then you cut way back on the variances, and then when people come in and they want variances to sidelines and stuff, you can say, no, you know, this reason, this doesn't fit in your lot. You know, you need to either make it smaller, not because you can't get a conditional use for the size. If your lot met this for the setbacks, it'd be a much more better chance you'd get the conditional use, but not a variance.
Well, do you think we could get a recommendation on that by the May meeting? I mean, if we have originally, the planning commission was tasked with a accessory structure decision in April, and it's, you know, things happen. And it seems like we're all in agreement that we need something to
work on
change.
that. I think it's important that we don't bite off more than we can chew.
Right.
I think
A
getting
small
these things
chunk,
one at a time instead of the overwhelming task.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to pile a bunch of them together. You can do a couple of them.
So I don't see why we can't come to an agreement on some of this stuff.
Well,
So you wanna just start with the accessory
input on
structures?
this. I think if you're gonna try to do this in the next 3 weeks, you're gonna fail. because you just cannot change the rules on how monopolies play as soon as you sit down at the table. So you should go out and say to the whole people in the county, just letting you know, this is a topic that's on discussion, and it has a goal endine of X. Because then people will have a chance that also will have input in the, you know, live different zoning districts or wherever, they will have a voice in it. And then they will accept whatever comes down. But if you say we're gonna do it by May 1st, you're gonna fail.
Well, I think we did talk about doing that too for,
I mean,
you know, so people get a chance to put
Right.
their own covenants in neighborhoods and things like that.
So I think that, you know, you can't do it May 1st. And obviously,
End of May.
This is addressed to you, Dan, personally. When this started out, and people are impassioned and stuff in here. But when you said it was basically my fault, it wasn't done by April 1st.
I didn't mean that.
Well, that's what I
how
would
you
like
took
to
it.
ask you is to sheath your sword. So we gotta lower, and then another thing I wanna bring up when I'm offering my insight, there's a couple times there's comments in here that says we have two sides. I've never had a side. I am an independent, I don't receive any money from the county on any board I serve on. I have no side. But it was said in here tonight a couple times, we have two sides. And if we go forward and we have two sides, we're gonna have a big dividing line between those two sides. And public perception, if they perceive it, that's the reality that happens. And, you know, everyone in here has volunteered to do this, but I think we gotta look at, like, how do we portray what we're doing to the public? We can't say that we as a planning commission have different sides, right? It's not a wedding, you pick the bride or the groom, you don't do that when you walk in the door. You're supposed to be able to present what your case is, your topic. And that's something I think we gotta look at, and, you know, and then I think this will be, I've served with all these people, a bunch of people over years, different people, and we always went through these tribulations, but we all lived in Yankton County. And I hope as we're doing a new commission, you know, Christy and I, and Lynn, Donna, we've all worked together in the past, and we had different issues, and sometimes we agreed on things and sometimes we didn't. And it's just something I think is important enough tonight that we bring it out, as we're starting a new, fresh path forward when we look at those things.
Well, I think I'm the person with the two sides comment. And I'll tell you right now, you can ask anybody in the audience, and they know there's two sides. The trick is to take those two sides and put them together to work for Yankton County. It's not to not admit that there's people from two sides, because there clearly is people from two sides of certain issues. But those people need to be able to work together. And I'm willing to do that, and I hope you're willing to do that. We've tried to do that tonight. We've tried to not just be one side on certain things. But everybody knows that there's issues of which there's basically two sides on a lot of big issues. There's basically two sides. And I think we can work together and maybe get some resolution to that, but we're nowhere near there yet.
Where I work at, there's us and them, and there's them and us. And since I've been working where I work at, I've never had there's us and them, and there's them and us. It's I've always been, there's one team. Maybe it's because I rode submarines for 20 years. When you left the port, you didn't care if you didn't like the guy or not. You were on the damn submarine, you can go anywhere else and you figure it out. But we didn't have two different teams. We didn't have two different sides. We didn't know there was two different sides. We knew there was one ship and we became.
Big difference between two different teams and two different sides.
Madam Chairman, I would recommend too that we're not gonna be able to get this stuff done one meeting a month. I don't know what your thoughts are, but either divide into teams to work on things, or at least plan on having at least one working session. I mean, the zoning ordinance has needed to be updated for far too long, and the time has come. We owe it to the citizens of the community to start working on that, and we will not get anything done if we only are doing it
once
a couple hours a month. It's gotta be more.
Okay, so do we want to start with
What nights of the week can we have them? In other words, what nights, you know, you're going to have your first and third Tuesday is going to be county commission in here. What week is the drainage commission in here?
Tuesday, 4th.
The 4th Tuesday?
Tuesdays are out.
We need to get away from Tuesday.
Can we work with Wednesday?
Church nights for
Well, that's
There's other
for
board
April,
nights,
but,
too.
I mean,
Is there another board in here on Wednesday, or?
No, there's just other board meetings.
Just other board meetings in general? How about Thursday night?
Thursday's good for me.
It's fine with me.
I can work on Thursday nights,
Thursday works for everybody?
as far as I know.
Is it worth? If it works. I mean, you know, unfortunately, we've had a terrible weather event, and like Dan and Joe both know, I've spent 20 hours in the last 10 days getting FEMA money observations so the county can get their assumptions into the state. And we're not done. No, I just got observed, I just got Schurzlich just sent something out today. With the storm coming, we can now compound that on top of the first one. So unfortunately, and I do unfortunately work about 60 hours a week too, and it gets tough. I'm not saying I will. You guys do what you can, and I will make everyone I possibly can. 2 times a month won't be bad. If you go to more than that, yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, and we could maybe, do a work session, and I think part of this work session was everybody bring an idea that, maybe you're not happy with this section, and we could pick our top few things, and we have a work session, but there's no reason we couldn't break up into small teams, do the research on something, and then come and present that to the board for discussion later on. That way some of the legwork is done. The way the board used to work when I was on it is the people on this board a lot of times were just given the information, and I think we need to take it upon ourselves to dig into this book and do some of our own research so that we can bring it forward. So that's what I would like to see. And that would work better with people's schedule, getting together with 2 or 3 people and on nights they choose. And
Did you guys get a compiled list of what has been approved by this, conditional uses, all those kind of applications? No idea of how many of all of those have been approved, as far as different moderate density, low density, any of that kind of stuff? Didn't get any kind of a compiled list.
We started with a list of variances that were compiled, and that was
variances.
that's why we kind of went headhunting for accessory structures.
Can we task Brian with going back 20 years and figuring out what?
Brian, let's get one thing clear.
So happy.
Brian's done at the end of the month. Brian's contract is up at the end of the month. So
Warranty work.
he won't be going no warranty work. I thought you guys got 11 by 17
We did, we had something.
that Pat just handed out, like,
And Pat gave us a lot
first of the year.
about all that stuff. It was all color-coded.
Breaking out all the conditional uses, all the variances. You get like 5 conditional uses for accessory buildings.
He did.
How?
Brian, look in the file cabinet.
He's done it lately.
It's there.
I mean, I would think you'd start with the one that's have been the most, whatever's been done the most, that needs to be fixed the most is what's been done the most, so.
What Thursday are we meeting next? We decided?
How's the 25th?
25th?
That's not this, but the next?
It's 2 weeks from
2 weeks from,
this Thursday. I lost my calendar. Just figured with the weather and everything else.
4:25?
So
To
just,
last week.
okay.
so
The
just
last Thursday.
plan on the last Thursday?
Thursday?
The last
7?
Thursday of the month?
Or when do you want us to meet? What time works for you guys?
Doesn't matter to me.
7,
Earlier.
okay?
6?
You wanna go 6?
It really doesn't matter. If you gotta quit an hour earlier or whatever,
It's a
better to go
working,
and tell.
yeah, it's a working meeting. Oh, the public is invited to all these meetings, by the way. It's just a working meeting, so you don't have to be quite as presentable or anything. You can come right from work.
And I think in the past, we discussed setting these up for, what, about 2 hours
Yeah,
at the most?
That's the trouble, they get too long.
Because you just, if we're on something.
We went
Okay,
from like
so we
6:30
will-
6:30 to 9 or something, would be.
Yeah.
Nothing
Or
really
6?
happens good after about 11 o'clock or so. I know.
You wanna-
I've been
you
in a
wanna
few of the
go-
meetings that
You
went
wanna
to
go
11
6 or you wanna go 6:30, guys?
I think 6:30 to 9 sounds like a fair compromise. Eric, what do you
6:30?
think?
You know, there's a lot of nights I don't get done work until 6.
I know, that's what I mean. Or 6:30, would you like 7 better?
I mean,
And I'll just quit, I never get done either.
Pizza on the way for all of us.
You tell, you.
I'm fine.
6:30 will be fine, I'll make it work.
6:30.
I doubt there'll be anything that important if
Well,
you're
there's
10,
nothing
15
that
minutes
we
late.
don't have an agenda that.
Okay, so we
One
We
thing.
want to work on accessory structures. Is there anything else you want to address, or you just want to concentrate on that for now?
Oh, we gotta get a couple of times. We should, we can't wait to jump 2 hours.
Well, what else?
That, and maybe add a few things.
Well,
Go through his list that he had.
right, but accessory structures,
That was a big.
that's a big one. That's in rural it's in all the different categories.
I think you're gonna be full in 2.5 hours with accessory.
With
I
that,
think so, too.
yeah,
And
I
then
think
you're
that's
also gonna
probably
figure out
enough.
the format of how it goes. So I think one, at the first meeting, then you kind of figure out what works.
Good
And then you
idea.
can have 2 topics, no more than 2 topics at a night where you're not gonna get nothing done.
Right. You won't get enough done to make it worth it, we'll put it that way.
If we get accessory structures done the first meeting, I'll buy beers for everybody.
Hey,
There's some motivation.
game on. Game on.
All right. All right, so
This-
we're.
this meeting will be noticed, though.
4:25
You'll notice
at
this to the
6:30
public, right?
PM.
Got it up.
Come with ideas, please.
Do we gotta sign those things tonight?
Yeah.
Yep.
You got it.
Oh, and we have public comment, anybody on the list?
I didn't see anybody, I went back there.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you for checking.
You want us to turn these into you, Christine?
And I know you're struggling to get everything done, Brian. And of course, we're not getting our mail. We've suspended mail. So I got my packet today.
Well, about packets,
you know,
I just found the operating protocol in that I've been way too generous. I've been letting people get stuff in like 4 days before it's supposed to be mailed. So, versus 17 days prior. So I'm not sure I want to get that tough, but I see that they were mailed out on Wednesdays, and I've been pushing it to Thursday, Fridays. I also didn't realize that they let the mail go at 3 o'clock here. I'm used to more like 5 at my office, so I'm adjusting.
Right, no, but it was just something I wanted to bring to your attention because I mean, unfortunately, we didn't get, mail didn't run. And
Yeah, we
it
did.
just shows up, you know, and I understand.
Packets will go out on Wednesdays from now on. And there any other critiques? I saw those black and white beacons did not show up. I mean,
It's
color?
hard to
is that
see
official?
like the proposed areas and stuff in the black and white
Yeah,
beacons.
this is the zoom out version, you can't see
Again,
it.
yeah, I got 2 black.
Save the paper if you're gonna.
Well, see, and
Do
my
you guys-
copier at District 3 has auto detect, so I can put black and white and color, and I can run them through there, and I don't have to sort them out, so it's, I'm a little spoiled.
Would it be easier, guys, to have a packet scanned and put on the website? Would that make your lives
It's on,
easier?
it is on the web,
The
I'm putting it on the website, the packet's on the website.
Okay.
I like
Guess I
the
didn't see
paper
that.
copy
It is-
so I can write notes.
I do.
It's hard to look through and then
And I
look
don't
back
have
and
time
do
to
different,
print
two things at
everything
once
out.
when it's on.
Then you print them out and then you
I
waste all
gotta,
day.
I gotta
Spend a lot of
share
time
the
fiddling with
copy
your
with
iPad, not much time looking
25
at each one.
So, I have absolutely no authority for this, but I like to push limits anyhow. iPads, would anybody look at that?
The what?
I've got one.
iPads for agendas, packets.
The whole packet is really hard to deal with, you know, we had that when I was a commissioner, and it's kind of hard to deal with as far as you want to look back and you want to find another page and make a note and do all this other stuff, and everybody's sitting there waiting while they're, and granted, maybe I'm just a dinosaur, but diddling through and trying to find that stuff, and then you, oh, God, I knew it was in there, and you roll back a bunch of pictures and you can't,
I like paper.
you
I
can't
like
find
paper.
it, so.
I like the paper better.
Okay.
I like the paper too.
So I'll get them out on, I'll
Sort
work
it
to
and then
get them out on Wednesdays. Any other improvements? I found the cover sheets. I tried to write little summaries or helpful in the cover sheets to give you a little
I just want to
background.
applaud what you've done. You've been driving the fire truck, you got put in the middle of the war.
Is it a different format for signing?
And I don't think anyone else
Well,
would.
this is the plat, I
Oh,
had to
that's,
sign it
oh,
for the
that's
chair.
chairman, where's all the,
Planning stuff.
we have to sign anything?
Well, thank you. It's been a hell of a run.
We have to sign how we.
It's kind of fun
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, as we vote, we gotta do those.
We're just
Yeah.
lucky to have you.
He didn't give us some shit. So
We already got-
Sign those,
Yeah, we do.
Do you all sign?
Yeah, no, we gotta sign the ones how we voted.
We all sign our vote.
Really?
Yeah.
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 I don't have a sheet for that.
You usually have a sheet that's got the thing on it, and then it's whether it was approved or denied, and then we gotta sign our votes.
Yeah.
So much process.
Oh, welcome to, you're not used to red tape by now.
Oh, I'm used to red tape. I'm just used to functional, necessary red tape.